Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 19th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. The first item up on this evening's agenda is executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3. As the chair, I'm making a preliminary determination of the need for executive session to discuss with town council a pending appeal and litigation. Is there a motion to go into executive session and return to open meeting at the conclusion of the executive session?
So moved.
Give that
Second.
to Suzanne. Second by Jerry. Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Patamas, aye.
Mark Finner and I.
James Morse, aye.
Murphy, aye.
Scott Peterson, I.
Tony Petrucci, aye.
We'll be in executive session. We will return to open meeting at the conclusion of executive session. For everyone who's come here for open meeting, I apologize, but you'll need to leave the room. We'll see you when we adjourn from executive session.
I thought they needed help with chairs.
Ashley
Good
and
evening again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the October 19th, 2023 meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. The first item that was on this evening's agenda was executive session, which is concluded. I'd like to take a moment and introduce members of the board. I would ask everyone right now to silence their cell phones, and please note this meeting is being recorded and taped by FCTV. I'll start by introducing members of the board. Starting at my far right, or the audience's far left, is Jerry Patamus, who is an associate member. Moving to the right is Frank Duffy, who is a full voting member. Mark Finneran, who's a full voting member. My name is James Morse. I'm a full voting member, currently serving as chair. Suzanne Murphy, who is a full voting member, as well as our clerk. We have Scott Peterson, who is our vice chairman, and we have Tony Petrucci, who is an associate member. We are also joined this evening by zoning administrator Noreen Stockman and Ashley DeMello, who is kind enough to be getting some additional chairs for everyone. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town zoning bylaws in reviewing and voting on applications. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to rendering a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. The applicant or the applicant's attorney will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation. Time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant. Next, the public will be invited to comment. Public comment should be directed only at the project. Please refrain from making derogatory statements. It can include an opinion in favor or opposition, or to ask a specific question about the project. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time if comments become repetitive. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair, should come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record. Please speak into the microphone. It does not amplify your voice, but is provided for the benefit of FCTV viewers. The board may continue a hearing to a future date and time. Otherwise, when the board is satisfied that it has received enough information, the hearing will be closed. Once the hearing is closed, no more testimony will be taken. The board will then discuss the proposal amongst themselves, then make a motion to approve or deny the application. The motion will be followed by a summary of key findings and conditions. An affirmative vote of 4 members, a supermajority, is required for the approval of special permits, variances, or appeals. A split vote of 3 to 2 is a failure to carry and result in a denial. Any zoning board of appeals decision may be appealed as provided for in Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 17. The first thing we have on the agenda in public session is
We have to wait.
public comment.
The 2 girls, please.
We're going to wait for a moment for our recording secretary and the zoning administrator to come back in.
Our janitor secretary. God, thank you.
Passing in here.
It's like 20 people in here for Monday night for pickleball.
I saw you
Pickleball
there.
people.
Contested
They're all
tennis
ex-skateboarders, you know, riffraff.
The only one missing is Richard.
I know. I'm shocked.
Easy now.
Couple weeks, yeah.
She looks happy.
So put a new town
You don't have to go to the gym.
All happy,
There's
doesn't
a new
it?
police station.
Wait till Sandwich Road opens.
Oh, here she comes with more.
Actually, this is a violation of the fire code.
The occupancy of the room is probably exceeded right now.
It's exceeded this room's capacity.
Well, you and I go.
About that door.
Just ask him. Scott just asked me.
There are always chairs
Raise the
coming.
issue.
Maybe the old water room. That's the water room. And then there's still a conference room across the street on the other side.
Any closer, we'll be able to smell their breath.
Monday,
job,
Monday
Gianna
night
Girl.
with the pickleball.
He's gonna
Water
try out.
department room was pretty much filled.
Oh, that was the big night with
Oh, yeah,
pickleball?
football, yeah. That would, I wouldn't object.
Not that I have heard.
I thought you indicated to me he might. Kevin said he might.
Just for the sake of oxygen.
That's fine, Jared.
This one?
Yeah, that's fine.
This one.
No, I haven't heard a word
Oh,
about
okay.
that.
All right. I thought you
Yeah,
said
that's
you
what I was
heard. Sorry.
No, no. I'll take out a word, bring it up.
Well, then I do have a lot to
Hold
say.
it up. Hold it up till it hits and then it'll open the full 2 inches or whatever it is.
Can only bend so far. Oh, that
Let's do this.
The old engineer in
I
me, you
need to
know?
get different folders out then.
one should retire.
Everybody ready? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good evening and welcome back. The first item up on the agenda this evening is public comment. This public comment is reserved for anyone wishing to make a comment on anything that is not specifically on the agenda this evening. Does any member of the public wish to make a public comment for something that is not specifically on this evening's agenda? Sir?
Hello, my name is Kevin Heffern from Meredith Drive in Falmouth. The Saxon Partners development proposed at 375 Sandwich Road is not affordable housing. Two-bedroom units will rent for $2,000 to $3,000. Three-bedroom units will rent for $3,000 to $4,000. As Kimberly Fish, Falmouth Town Coordinator, states, that does not address the needs of working people who live and work in Falmouth. The Saxon development is intended to draw in very wealthy second, third home people who see Cape Cod as a vacation resort. It does not address the needs of scientists, firefighters, healthcare workers such as nurses, teachers, and those of us who live here 12 months a year. The Hatchville neighborhood is over 90% 12-month residents. If you go there 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, you will see residents either walking the dog before they go to work or heading to work, and then returning again in the evening. This is a working-class neighborhood of 1 to 2 story homes. We do not need 4-story wealthy condominium complexes to benefit Saxon Partners based out of Hingham, Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to make a public comment? Sir?
Hi guys, I'm Patrick Heffern. Also live on Meredith Drive. I am an ICU nurse over actually in New Bedford, and I commute from Falmouth, and I go to New Bedford and work over in the trauma ICU over there, medical ICU, surgical ICU. This Saxton project is something that would affect me, and it is something for affordable housing that I would not be able to afford. I currently work in New Bedford due to a higher wage in New Bedford than it is in Falmouth. And as someone who wants to reside in Falmouth, I would love to live here. I love the community. The beaches are awesome. The community as a whole it's a great place to live and grow a family. This is not something that I would be able to afford for affordable housing. I am someone that, I manage a lot of life support. I'm titrating drips, doing all this, and I would love to stay in Falmouth in order to continue to grow a family here and continue to support my community. But this is something that I wouldn't be able to afford due to the cost of living and then also public transportation not being available to this area. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Through the chair, while she's walking up to the podium, for anybody present here tonight that's interested in 275 Sandwich Road, we have scheduled the first hearing. It will be on November 30th. at 6:30 p.m. and it will be at the Lawrence School Auditorium. That information will be posted on our website and mailed to abutters, but you're getting the first notice where it was established today.
Thank you. I'm Frances Chevali. I also live on Meredith Drive, and I'm also talking about the 375 Sandwich Road mega luxury apartment complex development. Falmouth already has its commercial areas along Main Street, the Falmouth Plaza, and the Falmouth Mall. Creating another large, high-traffic commercial area, such as the proposed mega luxury apartment complex, would destroy the small, lowly populated residential neighborhood of relatively modest homes and farmland which surround the 375 Sandwich Road property located in the village of Hatchville. Besides destroying the small neighborhood feel, it could negatively affect Falmouth's main industries of tourism and small farms by increasing traffic, congestion in commercial areas, and by decreasing Falmouth's open space, which both tourists and residents expect and enjoy. Destroying the small neighborhood feel of the area could generate a negative reaction in attracting and keeping essential workers, many of whom live in the adjoining neighborhoods of the 375 Sandwich Road property, since it would have lost the Cape's rustic charm. These local areas in Falmouth have all of Cape Cod's rustic charm, they just are not on the water. They are distanced from commercial areas and major roads, and they retain the same small residential feel with fresh air and black sky at night with stars and rural sounds, not city sounds. In conclusion, so that future generations can appreciate the open space that was so plentiful in the Cape and in Falmouth for previous generations, and that many have taken and are still taking for granted, this project should not go through. Once the open space is built up, it is gone and we can never get it back. Should the current proposed development go through, I think this would be a terrible loss for Falmouth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marjorie Parmenter, Meredith Drive. Zoning Board members, Falmouth has several 40B units projects on the table. The town's already close to attaining their 10% goal compared to the other towns on the Cape. I don't understand why this has now grown into such a frenzied rat race. Falmouth only needs 411 more units. Of the 3 projects referred to in Mr. Turkington's recent Enterprise article, one of the 3 would yield 156 units, not far from town. The second would be 40B, would yield another 104, also close to town. That leaves 151 units left to gain. But the third of these 3 projects on the table is hugely different from the other 2. The proposed Sandwich Road 40B project sticks out as the elephant in the room, and I've got 3 reasons. It's pristine forest and meadowland. It's annexed to the sand pit open space. The total acreage is 44 plus acres. However, only 75 affordable units would be the yield after a total of 44 acres are encumbered. If you do the math and you divide 75 by 44, that comes to 1.7 rental units per acre. What a loss of forest and meadowland and habitat for the number of units gained. In comparison, the other 2 proposed 40Bs are much more efficient because they'll be built on far less acreage. The number of units is much higher. I think one of them is, in his article, 50 units per acre, and the other is 20 units per acre. And also, they have pre-existing infrastructure. Hookups to the town's sewer infrastructure, proximity to resources and businesses already exist. My second reason, how can the state of Massachusetts ever consider, or even consider final approval of the Sandwich Road 40B when the parcel falls within such close proximity to the Coonamessett River wetland area? The state just poured money into this a few years back to help restore it. And very recently, even more restoration of the upper river wetland is being proposed for approval in 2024. The Sandwich Road proposal is a huge contradiction for the state of Massachusetts because this creates a potential risk for wetlands to possibly become recontaminated by the proposed treatment plant that has to go in there and to support the apartments. And the nitrogenous effluent is supposed to be ditched into the sand pit. The sand pit is at the east end of the parcel. It's less than 500 feet away from the riverbank. And in comparison, the other two proposed projects don't carry such an environmental risk factor for possible contamination of sensitive underground aquifers to the Great Pond watershed. A sewage treatment plant does not have to be built for the other two 40B proposals. My third reason, the state has a list, Massachusetts has a list of protected species. On it is a certain bat species, and it is widely known that insectivorous bats dwell in the forested Sandwich Road parcel. Also on the state's protected list is a reptile, the eastern box turtle. They move seasonally from the riverbanks in the river to the Sandwich Road upland parcel. They nest and overwinter there. Their preferred habitat is sandy soil. They're often seen by the neighbors and abutters to the Sandwich Road parcel. As recently as this week, we've had sightings of juvenile hatchlings that have been reported to the Town Conservation Commission by concerned individuals and animal lovers. How can the state of Massachusetts justify the destruction of the sand pit for the treatment plant if it could indeed be a habitat for a turtle that the state is trying to protect? This is another huge contradiction. It bears closer scrutiny. It warrants professional ground truthing surveys. In comparison, the other two 40B proposals don't carry such a weighted burden of wildlife protection in order to go through. So in conclusion, I believe that the Sandwich 40B proposal is the elephant in the room, should be seriously reevaluated by the state and the town for all that has to go into it, all that's at risk, and compared to what we're going to get out of it, only 75 affordable units. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment about something that's not on tonight's agenda? Ask the question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, could I have a show of hands of who's here for the hearing for the Seacrest, 350 Quaker Road? Okay. I would like to make a motion to potentially take our agenda out of order and move up the Seacrest review.
Is the applicant's representative here? Nope.
Second that.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion?
I don't care, but I'm not a voting member.
Frank?
I'd be amenable to it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll be taking 08423 Falmouth Resort Owners LLC, 350 Quaker Road, North Falmouth. Modification of existing special permits to construct 4 duplex structures over the existing tennis courts and convert a portion of the existing office building into an additional unit first.
All right.
Not at all.
Worry. All right, we have Falmouth Resort Owner LLC, 350 Madison Ave, 8th floor, New York, New York. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for modification of an existing special permit pursuant to sections 240, 102A, and 240-62B of the Code of Falmouth to construct 4 duplex structures over the existing tennis courts and convert a portion of an existing office building into an additional unit. The subject property is 350 Quaker Road, North Falmouth, Mass. And from town boards, I have some information from planning. The applicant has filed an SPR application with the planning board and is scheduled for 10/10/23. And I have their decision here. I can read that if need. It's not too bad, I'll read it out. Sewerage, adequacy of waste, let's see, let's just go right straight to the decision. Parking and access, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way, public utilities. Quaker Road is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes in the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. Based on parking analysis on the site plan, 362 parking spaces are required and 373 are provided. Based on the 373 parking spaces provided, 8 accessible spaces are required and 13 are provided. Based on the 13 accessible spaces provided, 2 van accessible spaces are required, and it isn't clear which spaces the van accessibles are in. However, it appears that the minimum requirement could be met. We defer to the board if this shall be clarified. Grading and drainage. Where the project falls in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we defer to the Conservation Commission for stormwater management and construction erosion controls. You can note that the DPW engineering aided in the review of the stormwater management calculations for the Conservation Commission approval. Note that while this project disturbs greater than an acre of land, per stormwater management rules and regulations, Article 3, 2.2, a stormwater permit is not required for this project since they are within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. In general topics, we defer to the board if traffic information is required. We defer to the board for any landscape plans. We defer to the board for coastal overlay. Defer to the building commissioner if the project requirements of 247.3 floodplain. The project appears to meet the height restrictions of 247.6. That's planning. Engineering. We have, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way, public utilities. Quaker Road is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes in the right-of-way will require filing a permit with the engineering division. 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to any public property, abutters, or public rights-of-way. 4, the proposed roof area will be directed to subsurface infiltration areas as we typically recommend. 5, where this project falls in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we defer to the Commission for Stormwater Management and Construction Erosion Controls. Note that we aided in the review of the stormwater management calculations. We reviewed this project for the planning board under site plan review. Our comments are attached. And then we have Concom's whole decision here, which is really long. You can all, I think, find that online if need be, but it's many pages long. And I'll get to the next group. And that's Concom. And this is from Scott McCann, the health. The property is on a groundwater discharge permit regulated by Mass DEP. I spoke with the property's civil engineer who indicated that the existing groundwater DP would cover the increase in flow as they are currently operating under an approved capacity of 85,000 GPDs. They would need to notify Mass DEP but there wouldn't be any need to be physical work done to the treatment plant to accommodate. Amy Lowell. Let's see, this is wastewater. The Seacrest Resort at 350 Quaker Road has its own private on-site wastewater treatment facility with a groundwater discharge permit issued by the DEP. The property owner's representative should confirm that any required review by DEP of this increase in flow to the existing treatment facility has been completed with regard to the treatment and discharge capacity. No comment there. And we have planning, who hasn't finished its whole thing until October 24th. I also have 65 letters of emails in opposition and none in favor. And that's what I have.
For the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Ament Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I'm representing Falmouth Resort Owner LLC, the owner of the Seacrest property located at 350 Quaker Road. I'm joined tonight by Clark Gwynn, who's the general manager of Seacrest, Michael Cusey, and as well as Tim Santos of Merrill Engineers, who is the engineer on this project. We are before you seeking to alter the existing developed property and modify the existing special permits. This is currently operated as a 253-room hotel with an associated restaurant and function space. What is being proposed is 4 duplex buildings located at the northern end of the parking lot, and alteration of a portion of the existing building into an additional unit. So a total of 9 new units being added. As you know, this project requires multiple levels of approval, site plan review from planning, conservation order of conditions, which has been approved and received, and modification of the special permits with this board. The first planning board meeting has occurred and went fairly well. We made some changes to the plans based on the planning board's comments as well as some of the abutters, and we're back before them next week. So we will be requesting a continuation tonight, but I wanted to use this opportunity to introduce the project, to generally review the plans, to field any questions from the board, and certainly to hear the neighbors' input. This is a 21.14 acre lot. It's split zoned between Business 3 and Residential B, both of which allow for commercial accommodations by special permit. It's a really stunning piece of property. You don't need me to explain that to you. I think everyone's been there. And it's recently under new ownership. We are proposing units in the location of an existing developed area where the tennis courts are. Proposal will result in a net reduction of over 6,000 square feet of impervious surface being eliminated, even with the proposed buildings. As proposed, there's no change to existing parking areas. The new buildings will be flood zone compliant. There'll be elevated parking underneath. There'll be no change to existing traffic flow or site design outside of the area of development. The proposed lot coverage by structures, 14.4%, which is well below the 20% allowed by right. And lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking will be 35.2%, also below the 40% allowed by right. Current special permits allow for up to 266 units at the property, while the bylaw itself allows for up to 332. Currently, we have 253 units. With this proposal, we'll be at 262 units, which is still under the number of units that is currently permitted by the most recent special permit. With all uses, both existing and proposed, the required number of parking spaces is 362. We've provided 373, including 13 handicap. So we're seeking to modify the existing special permits pursuant to section 240, 10.2A and 246.2B. It's the same use, commercial accommodations, as is currently being made. It's an improvement to the existing landscaping. As noted, there's a significant reduction of impervious surface. We're aware of the concerns stated by the abutters, specifically regarding noise and light. Many of those were expressed at planning and as well as submitted in correspondence. We did originally submit landscaping and lighting plans with our initial application, which had minimal lighting at the rear of the buildings, which were dark sky compliant. Concom did not require mitigation planting since this was a net reduction, but we did have a landscape plan. However, following the initial planning board meeting, we did work to revise the plans, which were submitted to both boards earlier this week. We've increased the proposed landscaping as a buffer as was requested. We have specified and reduced the lighting at the rear. The plantings include arborvitae as requested by planning and abutting and any abutters. And the lighting plan changed the proposed lighting types. So you'll see here, it is down lighting, it is dark sky compliant. We had submitted dark sky compliant lighting previously, but what we've added is a lot of these railing lights that'll be used along the rear here. So if you look at the rear, which is this one here, they proposed the railing lights here rather than having more lights on the walls in order to reduce potential glare and light pollution. They're unobtrusive and small. As to noise, the decks at the rear are relatively small. They're intended for relaxation, not for congregation. There is no public congregation space proposed in the yard area, the landscape area to the rear of the buildings. There's no proposed communal areas. The management has been working to address concerns, including reaching out to the abutters. As was noted in the referrals, this is on a DEP groundwater permit with a treatment facility on site, which has the capacity to address the additional units, and we will have to go through the DEP process of alerting them to any increase. I mentioned this at the planning board hearing, but it came up in a conversation with Michael Kasparian at the Chamber of Commerce. He told me that in 1990 there was over 2,000 hotel rooms in town, and there's currently less than 1,000. It's around 900. There is a need for commercial accommodations, especially on sites that are already designed for it and are already hosting it. The applicant's seeking to continue to improve and reinvest in the property, to be a good neighbor and to be a good corporate citizen. We have made a number of changes in response to the plans and in response to the comments that have come in, as well as the comments from the planning board. That is generally the overview of the project that is being proposed. I anticipate the board will have questions, and I know that there's a number of people here who want to speak. We're happy to hear them and see what we can do to address those concerns further. But in the meantime, I'd be happy to address any questions you might have.
Board questions. Start with you, Jerry.
No question.
Frank.
Probably later, but I just want to confirm these additional units are going to be in the residential district of the split zone lot? Okay.
I'll have plenty of questions, but to piggyback on Frank, of the 21.14 acres, of the 21.14 acres, how many of them are in the residential B?
Give me 1 second to do the math. 761, 457 divided by 43,560. 17.4.
Okay, that's all for now.
These can be rented just as strict hotel rooms, or are these going to be fractional ownership?
No, these will be hotel rooms. These are commercial accommodations.
Thank you. I'll have questions later.
I'm all set for now.
Scott?
I appreciate the information. As you can see from the folks that are here, clearly we want to hope that you're speaking to them and listening to their concerns. The greenscaping, making sure it looks as though the parking is sufficient, the septic systems concerns that you mentioned, the downward lighting. We want to make sure there's additional, or at least I would like to see as much greenscape as possible. So I'm glad that you're listening to the abutters and looking forward to seeing your kind of final changes. So I appreciate that you're listening to the abutters.
Tony?
No questions at this time.
Public comment.
I'll sit down.
Grab a pillow.
Yeah, we'll go first, just because it's
Good idea.
This is democracy at its finest.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you to the town, everyone that came here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jay Mahoney. I'm a fourth generation from 42 Santuit. My great-grandparents bought a property, my grandparents owned a property, and then they continued to expand upon it. And we're coming down here for years, and the fifth generation's over there. We appreciate the Seacrest and what they've been able to do and the change of ownership and how they've improved the property. However, this is a substantial change in comparison to what it was previous. From my understanding, these original properties, when they're proposed, were going to be for employees of a hotel. They've changed now to now being rentals. And then from there, although they're not looking to initially put in congregation areas outside, I don't see why in the future why they couldn't ask for additional leniencies for those. The biggest issues for me are definitely going to be noise complaints. We live in an area where, the Seacrest during the day, you can hear their music clear as day, which is fine, but then at nighttime, when it's family time and we're trying to go to sleep, we can hear people. The idea that adding additional property literally right on the pond line, it's going to be basically as if they're in our backyard. So with that said, I would be in opposition to this. I would also be curious on how they were able to pass conservation so well. As everyone knows who lives in this community, whenever for example, when my parents made changes to their lot, they couldn't build or expand anything additional to their foundation that they were on. And any addition that they looked to make, they lost a bunch of square footage on their property because they had to add bushes. And now we have a big variance that's being asked of this town and this community. So for those reasons, I am in opposition. I would also ask in regards to the pond itself. There was issues going back for a number of years that I'm not sure if were resolved, I should say, in regards to the water quality of the pond. I know it is something that the community has worried about, and from my understanding, the Seacrest was one of the main reasons why the water quality was diminished in the pond. I'm not sure if that had been addressed or not. And so for those number of reasons, I am in opposition to that. I do appreciate the board's time, and thank you very much. I know there's a lot of people looking to speak today, so thank you.
Ma'am?
Thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Erin Hall, and I'm a direct abutter on the pond. Where our house is, it directly faces the open tennis courts and that whole area, the parking lot. As it is right now, we can hear the Seacrest noise on a regular basis. With the prevailing winds, it's even worse coming off the ocean. I can only imagine with the addition of these 9 or 10 units, 80-plus people, because I'm sure with all the weddings and the parties and the conventions that take place, those rooms are always overbooked, and there's air mattresses all over, even in the hotel rooms. So that noise will only compound what we hear now. And as it is now, we're calling the police because it seems as though those occupants can't be controlled. I think with the addition of this, just the nuisance it would cause and forever change the landscape, forever change the neighborhood that we live in and the tranquility that we feel. So I am very opposed to this project, and I hope you will reconsider allowing this permit and this project to go forward. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mel.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Hall, and I live at 8 Catuit. Thank you for letting me speak. I have been enjoying crabbing at the bridge for the past 10 years of my life, and with my friends, we crab at the bridge all the time. And I am concerned that the big changes, including the lighting and people on their porches, it will shoo away our beloved creatures. And none of the other young children, such as myself, will be able to enjoy crabbing at our bridge as much as I did. Potter's Hole is a magical place. Please don't let this happen. Changes to the seagrass will affect the pond and my neighborhood forever. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm Chris Hall. I'm also at 8 Catuit, so you get the three of us tonight. I would just add, given the amount of square footage and acreage that Seacrest has, they have plenty of places to put these buildings near the existing buildings. You know, the noise that comes today comes from buildings that run along the edge of the beach, and that's a lot further away than the position that they're currently proposing to put the new construction. And in fact, if you look at the map and you look at the high tide line, these buildings are precariously close to the high tide line, let alone the king high tide lines that happen in our neighborhood. So given all the acreage they have, I think they have other options that would allow the nature of Potter's Hole to remain as it is, and yet still provide additional accommodation for their guests. And I'm in opposition to this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hines. I'm an abutter on Quaker Road. A slightly different perspective, although I'm in agreement with all of these folks. My husband and I have had a great relationship with the Seacrest since purchasing our home over 10 years ago. And when we visit the property, we are welcomed by their staff. They're very gracious. But about 10 years ago, we were invited to see the cottage as it was being built. The cottage is located on the right side of the property, immediately after entering the Quaker Road, from Quaker Road. We got a private tour of the unit when it was almost complete, and we loved it. The decor and the clean lines looked great. What we didn't know or see was that there was going to be a deck on the back of the cottage, bordering Quaker Road and in essence across the street from our bedroom. We knew the hotel had quiet hours for the property, and we were told that the guests, when checking in, were asked to sign an agreement related to the noise after 11 p.m. So we were comfortable with the proximity of the cottage to our home. Well, that peace of mind quickly changed, as did our peaceful night's sleep. At the end of the tour, we were asked to call the general manager instead of the police if there were any problems with the guests at the cottage. Understandably, the resort GM didn't want the police showing up or any negative attention. Over the years, we would call the GM, and when there was noise on the deck at the back of the cottage. Even when our windows are closed, the noise echoes off Potter's Hole, which makes it difficult to sleep before going to work the next day. Eventually, calling the GM became ineffective, so we would call the front desk. Sorry, I lost my place. The front desk people would say that they would make an effort to try to quiet down the guests, but that did not occur. Some years, the resort did have on-site security, but more often than not, the calls were not effective. Resort staff do not want to discipline guests who are paying a lot of money to stay there, which has been a frequent problem for my husband and I. The deck and fire pit behind the cottage promotes outdoor get-togethers which are not conducive to a quiet residential area of Falmouth. Hotels should house guests behind closed doors and inside. Hotels should not promote outdoor congregation late at night when it is disturbing to neighbors. When our calls were not effective, we would make a subsequent call to the Falmouth Police. The Falmouth Police should not be called for a noise complaint, but we had no other recourse. During the summer, when the outdoor space at the cottage is mostly used, we can't leave our windows open, and even when the windows are closed, the sound is disruptive. Falmouth police are a valuable resource and stretched thin, especially during the summer. So in our opinion, we should not allow these units to have decks outside on either the front or the back units as they are shown on the plans. Most recently, my husband called the Seacrest front desk on September 16th at 11:50 p.m. to complain about the noise. We spoke with Arthur, the front desk manager, who said he would send someone over there to quiet the guests, but the guests remained outside until nearly 2 a.m. Also, Arthur rudely and abruptly hung up. So the next day, I called the manager, the day manager, left 2 messages, and did not receive a phone call back. I would like to ask that the board mandate that the deck and fire pit behind the cottage be removed. The disruption and anxiety of this almost weekly occurrence has exacerbated health issues for the last 10 years. The Seacrest is not proactive in resolving these noise issues, and they are not responsive to the complaints. The resort clearly does not want to deal with this, so why should more units like this be built? Please consider these facts in your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those comments.
You're very welcome.
I'm William Sullivan. Only had a house at 9 Santuit Road for 43 years, so I'm kind of a newcomer. But I look right over that pond, and I can tell you there's noise that comes over that pond. And they're asking to put these units in with a back porch. I can tell you, in those 43 years, I've had wedding parties over there, and a lot of the neighbors have. And I'm telling you, that porch will be the after-hours party place, and the father of the groom will rent the place, and that's where the noise will come from. We can hear anything over that pond. Now I want to, the point that she made is what I'm afraid we're going to live with. We get some noise. We don't get that. This is a non-conforming use. I know they got a special permit, and we didn't fight that because they need, a little something there. But we're going to fight this. This is a non-conforming use. The Seacrest is a very valuable asset to Falmouth, and it pays a lot of taxes. So do we. Go ahead and add up the number of houses in our association and what the value is. And we don't put a lot of impact on the services. But we will put some, and I don't want to do it, but if you approve this, we're going to have no alternative but to challenge it. And we're going to spend some legal fees. And I'm a retired lawyer, and I've also been a real estate developer. I am not anti-development, but this is ridiculous. It's a little backdoor thing. Thought they would schedule it in October when everybody's gone. They're not gone. They came back, or they're here. And there's more of us, and we'll get together. This will not go away. So you need to really consider that. The Seacrest has been great in a lot of things. The first responders, they had the foresight to invite them to use the beach during COVID, and they host retirement parties, and we're happy they're there. But they are a non-conforming use. And if you don't think that impacts us, I would like you to go to your town council and ask them whether or not we've got a case. Because we don't want a case. We just don't want these units built. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rhonda Seifer. I've lived in the area on Cotuit Road and on Webster Street in our neighborhood. I am also on the board of directors for our association. We have been here, my mother and I, and our family since 1965. There has always been some ongoing issues with our neighbors, the Seacrest. And as everybody has said, sometimes they're addressed and sometimes they're not. I'm going to just quickly read from an abutter on Cotuit Road that is objecting. He sent in this email, and he said, that this is Steve Windwer, and he said, "My wife and I live next door to the Seacrest. As it stands now, we have constant issues with the Seacrest, which includes litter in their yard, hotel guests coming over to their property, and intoxicated guests coming over to their property. They severely object to expanding the capacity of the Seacrest. The proposed project would change the essential character of our neighborhood. It would impact the health and quality and life as we know it due to the noise, and would likely negatively impact the property values of our neighborhood. We have 180 approximately families that live in that area. Compounding factors, as you've heard, noise pollution, light concerns, and enormous volume during the summer months with the noise from partying. The people that stay there, they don't live there, but we live here. And we want that quality that we pay for dearly. We support Falmouth, we love our community, and we do not want to see this expansion. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I'm Paul McMahon. My wife Sheila is here with me as well. I think she might be out in the outside the door due to the volume of people here today. My wife and I are truly newcomers to the area. We've only been here 8 years, as opposed to some of the other folks that have spoke this evening. We live on Quaker Road. We can oversee the pond out to the Seacrest. And to be honest, one of the reasons we initially purchased the property on Quaker Road, it initially was a second home, was because of the serenity, the beauty, the view that we had from that house where we could see the ocean. One of the concerns I have with the construction of these units and the height of these units is our view of the ocean is going to be obstructed. And as a result, from a personal standpoint, that will impact our property values. So in addition to that, that's from a personal standpoint, but a lot of the points that other folks have brought up tonight, we share as well. Noise pollution is certainly a concern of ours, as well as, again, one of the reasons we liked the area was just because of the pond, the wildlife we see in the pond. We're very concerned about the potential impact of that pond as a result from these new units. So I stand here tonight with my wife in opposition of this. Thank you very much for your time.
I'll be brief once I get here. I'm Ellen Ruland, and my daughter Susan Buckwalter Hartman owns 35 Santuit Road. I own 2 and 4 Catuit Road. Susan lives in California, but she did this. She's done a lot of work. She wants me to speak on her behalf tonight to say we object to the expansion plan. The proposed project would change the essential character of our neighborhood. It would also impact our health, safety, and property values and quality of life. Dozens of us have written to express our concern. She authored the letter that went out early on. We have a plan that looks at it from our perspective. I know earlier the overview of the thing was up here. This is from the perspective of our neighborhood, looking over. That's how close these 9 units would be to Potter's Hole. We were stunned that this went through conservation. Every new building, as you know, is a setback of 100 feet from the wetlands. So these are like, I don't know how many feet, because it doesn't show on the plans, but they're stunningly close. This is the high tide mark. She also did a Google Earth that showed low tide. It says, "The proposed buildings in yellow and red, blue lines are show the water high tide, since Google Map photo is at low tide. Our neighborhood includes homes, Santuit Road, Nauset West, Cotuit Road, and Quaker. These have a big impact. You can see how sparsely populated. I think there are 5 or 6 homes that actually abut Potter's Hole. I think we're almost all here tonight, except for the ones that live out of state, but some of us are retirees, so we're able to be here in October. This makes it such a high density. We know it's single-family zoning in that area. RB zoning, I believe, is single-family residential. These are neither residential nor single-family. They're 2 families, they're duplexes, and the total capacity would be 54 additional guests. That's what their 3-bedroom spaces each. The plans show the beds and so forth. They have a kitchen, they each have a washer and dryer. They're like 2-family homes. So I just wanted you to see the impact from our perspective. This is the low tide one that doesn't have the blue line. The same picture, and this is exactly how they're located. Thank you.
Anyone else care to make a comment?
I had one clarification.
Come to the microphone, sir. Thank you.
I don't have all the facts, but I said it was a non-conforming use. This is part of the Seacrest. This is not something else. They aren't putting it on the, they're calling it the tennis court. The tennis court's been gone for my memory. It's not there. It's parking. But they moved it to there. They wouldn't put it on the parking lot because that would be a non-conforming use. This is a sham. It's part of the Seacrest. Those people are going to use all the facilities. They're going to rent them from the Seacrest. So to say that this is over there, they're a good tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, but so are we. And we are not going away. This is not fair if you pull this little...
Any other public comments?
I live on Nauset West, and the pond is right across the street from my house. I'm a year-round resident. I'm a teacher in town, and I'm very concerned about the effect this will have on my property, on the wetlands, and on the beaches in Falmouth. It's a congested area at best during the summer, and certainly having 50-odd people in addition is going to make it worse, and it's going to put the washing machines and more nitrogen into the pond, however, from the treatment plant. I just think it's a big mistake, and I oppose the project.
Any other comments? Mr. Clower.
Should I close the door, or is it still warm back there?
I'm still sweating profusely, so.
Yeah, but you get paid a lot of money.
You know, but I don't think closing the door is going to change that or not. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who's spoken tonight. As I mentioned, you know, we wanted to hear comments from the board, comments from the abutters. Would like to request a continuation because we are still going through the planning board process. We've submitted some revised plans to them. We have a hearing coming up on Tuesday. So I'm not quite sure when, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. I don't know if we'll get an approval at that point, but even best case, they're still probably a few weeks out from issuing a decision. So would like to request a continuation from you this evening.
For you, Madam Chairman, or excuse me, Madam Administrator, do you have a date in mind?
Yeah, you have a pretty heavy agenda coming up, so we're
November is rather full.
Yeah, we're proposing December 7, which would also provide for enough time for them to gather items wrapped up.
I have a question when you finish.
Absolutely.
Mr. Clower, we have copies of 5 amendments to a special permit. I don't know if you've seen them. They're on our website, and they were distributed to the members of the board. None of them address how this property was originally developed. Is there a special permit or some document that describes how it was permitted and what the conditions are from the original permit, particularly as they refer to the residential district?
So I've given you the copies of the special permits I have. I also have been in touch with Ashley about what other permits they had records of. So we've given you copies of the records that we have possession of.
Well, I point out because I don't think they're very helpful. I mean, they refer to other things that really aren't relative to this. I think it might be beneficial for public and me particularly to find out how this place got located in a residential district, and if the Board of Appeals or whoever approved it at that time imposed any conditions on it with respect to the residential district. We should know if we can find out.
Sure, we can certainly look into that. You know, as you well know, commercial accommodations is a special permit use within that use, but we can look for that special permit decision to the extent it exists.
Thank you.
12/7, is that the date?
Yep. So I'll make a motion to continue the hearing to December 7th.
Is there a second? Second. Give that to Suzanne. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing will be continued to December the 7th.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and everyone's time this evening.
I'm going to shut the door for a few minutes.
We're ready to be cold?
Yes, Frank.
No, I'm okay.
Okay,
But you're the guy who was in the short sleeves.
That's
You
all
know,
right.
it's fall, Jerry.
Wife dressed me today. That's all right. I'll survive.
Like, okay, so they do let that.
In the past, you used to be the one that argued.
Well,
Want to split the difference, Jerry?
What's that?
The board will take a 5-minute break.
Add in there instead of the big one?
Okay, I'll put it on the side like I had
We're
it.
gonna make Ashley put away every chair in the too. We're gonna make Ashley put away every chair.
Next up on this evening's agenda will be continuations of hearing 07023 Clark, trustee 711 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, requesting a modification of special permit number 1737 to convert the existing three-family into a duplex and construct a new duplex structure.
I do have one new letter that came in that has requested to be read. Dear members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my sister and I are directly located across from the proposed building. We are writing in opposition of the special permit currently under consideration before your board. The square footage does not add up. You cannot build on a 22,000 square foot lot. Building alone obstructs the view of the tree line. The setback is all wrong. Plus, if you sit on a hill 5.3 feet above street level, which magnifies its existence, it's just not enough room to do the correct plantings of trees. Snow removal ends up on the sidewalk across the street, blocking the sidewalk. Trash barrels are left out. Parking is a big deal. There isn't any room for a fire truck to get there to turn around. Apartment buildings have to be lit up. Parking lots have to be lit up. Too much light. We are totally against this proposed apartment building special permit. You have allowed too many special permits with this property that sits directly across the street from our house. It's not fair, and I'm hoping that it's not legal. Sincerely, Tammy, Maximus, and Cheryl. It's just a letter that came in.
Any other additions to the file since last time?
Any other, there's more letters that came in? Let's look. There's quite a few. Some of them weren't like today or anything. 1, 2, let's see. I think there's, well, look, there was 2 letters concerns, 3 letters opposition. That was an opposition, and then 2 others that I think are in opposition. So maybe 5 total, roughly.
For the applicant.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower. I am before you on this continued hearing representing Gene Clark, trustee of the W. Clark Trust, the owner of 711 West Falmouth Highway. I'm joined tonight by Jared Chagnon, who is the property manager for the Clark Trust. Brief review of our last hearing. This lot is 41,734 square feet. It is split zone B3 and residential B. Currently, there is a 3-family dwelling nearest the street, which includes a 2-bedroom apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment, and a studio. And there is a single-family dwelling at the rear, which has 2 bedrooms. The front house is non-conforming as to front yard setback. It's 23 feet where 25 is required. Otherwise, it's conforming to rear yard and side yard setbacks as well as lot coverage requirements. There is an existing 1963 special permit, which allowed division of the front structure into 3 units. Though there was a special permit, it is non-conforming today as it is multifamily housing in both B3 and residential B. We are requesting a special permit under 240-10.2A and 246.2B proposing the construction of a new duplex located entirely in the business zone. In connection with this, there'd be an elimination of one of the existing units in the front building, resulting in a total of 5 units of housing on this split zone lot. This has been reviewed and approved by the Historical Commission. A certificate of appropriateness was issued relative to both the duplex and the fence. The new duplex is proposed to be entirely in the B3 district with 2 2-bedroom apartments. Other than the elimination of an existing unit, there's no proposed change to either existing structure. There will be a total of 5 units on site, a total of 9 bedrooms. There is a new 10-bedroom Title V wastewater system that was installed last year. The duplex, as proposed, does not create any new nonconformities, complies with setback requirements as well as lot coverage requirements. As we left it, I believe the town was requesting an opinion on the use of split zone lots from town council. I'm not sure if that was received or not. Or we not even, okay. So as a quick review, Tobias v. Butler is the main case on the subject, which states clearly that you take into account the entire single lot, including the area in the more restrictive zoning. The case specifically says, we conclude that the trial judge's decision that the calculation could run to the lot line and need not stop at the district boundary was correct. There's a similar case, Pinecroft Development versus Zoning Board of West Boylston, which overturned a denial by a zoning board, where the board unreasonably interpreted the town's bylaw, imposing a minimum lot requirement for multi-unit dwellings to displace the well-established rules governing split lots, that the relevant dimensions of the project are to be measured in relation to the boundaries of the entire lot rather than the boundaries of the portion that permits multi-unit dwellings. That case also states where a proposed active use is permitted on a portion of a split zone lot located in a less restrictive district, the owner is permitted to count the area and boundaries of the part of the split lot located in a more restrictive district to fulfill dimensional requirements such as lot size, frontage, setback, and density. Developments of this nature have been reviewed and approved by this board on a number of occasions. I highlighted some of these last time, but it's worth reviewing again. Appeal number 7201 for Fieldstone Place condominiums at the corner of Westmoreland Drive. The zoning board approved 6 units on 1.2 acres. There, they calculated the density based on the entire lot, including the Business 3 district and the Residential B district. Appeal number 5113 at 681 West Falmouth Highway allowed the development of 5 units, allowed for alteration of a use based on existing nonconformities, and used the entirety of the lot, including the B3 and the Residential B, to calculate the density. Appeal number 13805 at 270 Old Main, pre-existing nonconforming situation with 2 dwellings on a lot, each of those dwellings having 2 units, a total of 4 units. The board allowed multifamily use of 8 units on 1.5 acres, including a duplex in the general residence district. In determining the density, the board considered the entire lot, not just the business district. There was no issue with multifamily use, including 3 duplex units in the business district and a duplex in the general residence district. That was approved under 243C as not substantially more detrimental. What we have here is an existing nonconformity due to the location of the buildings that has been, those buildings have been there for over 100 years, and a use allowed by special permit. The proposed duplex is entirely within the zone which allows for that use, and it's appropriate to calculate the density based on the entirety of the lot. Proposed structures are completely conforming to front, rear, and side yard setbacks. The entirety of the property complies with lot coverage, both by structures and structures, paving, and parking. There's no new nonconformities, and I believe this meets all the requirements set forth in 24010.2A, 246.2B, and 24012.1E. I'd be glad to address any questions that the board might have regarding this project. Thank you.
Board questions, start with you, Jerry.
No questions.
Frank?
Well, I want to clarify something. Mr. Clower asked if we had received an opinion from town council.
Thank you.
And did he get an answer?
He did not.
Well, we did.
Well, we did, yes. The answer is yes, we did. You proceeded, you were shaking your head, but yes, we did receive an opinion.
I wasn't shaking my head, no, I was just nodding, listening. Sorry, process.
Well, what are we going to do about it?
Town council's not in is not agreeing with your position as to this particular lot. Believes that the case is distinguishable based on the fact that Tobias had the same dimensional requirements in each of the split lots, and this is very different in this case, so.
I don't know how you read it otherwise. It seems clear as day in the case law. And numerous cases have cited to Tobias to allow for calculation of lot coverage based on the entirety of the lot. I just pointed out Pinecroft Builders versus West Boylston. I'd be happy to submit that to the board. And they even said it's well settled. The exact language there was the well-established rules governing split lots, that the relevant dimensions of the project are to be measured in relation to the boundaries of the entire lot rather than the boundaries of the portion that permits multi-unit dwellings. And it also goes on to say that the owner is permitted to count the area of the and boundaries of the part of the split lot located in the more restrictive district in the residence in this area to fulfill dimensional requirements such as lot size, frontage, setback, and density. That's really clear. So I'm not quite sure why town council is taking that position. I haven't had the opportunity to speak with town council about it, but the case law is clear on its face that you're allowed to count the entire lot in determining density.
Unless the board wants to proceed otherwise, my suggestion is we finish with board questionings, receive any public comment, and then if discuss whether we want to give the applicant a continuance to confer with town council on this issue or otherwise. Does that sound acceptable to everyone on the board?
Yeah.
Mr. Finner, do you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple.
I'm sorry, Mr. Duffy, were you done?
Well,
Sorry, Mark.
okay, I'm done. I made my comment. Let's hear what other people have to say.
Can you just start out by reviewing the nonconformities of this?
The front yard setback is, I believe, 23 feet where 25 is required. And we have currently a multifamily situation. Multifamily is any combination of three or more buildings, 3 more units in more than one building. So we have 3 units in the front building and 1 unit in the rear building, and that straddles the property line right now. The zoning district line.
Was this parcel always one lot?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
In your application and on your plans, you refer to one of the buildings in 3 different manners. On the plans here, you call this an accessory structure.
Accessory building, yeah.
And on the application, you call it a single-family cottage, and then a 4th unit in a multi-family situation. I find that inconsistent. When was the building in the back built?
So both cards indicate 1900. When they put 1900, it usually means they don't quite know. I did find, I mean, you can see, it's not the clearest thing. Let's see here. 1960 aerial shows both the 3-family and the single-family here. You can see that as well, not as well, right there. That is the same building and building here, and that's from the 1950 aerials. There's nothing prior to that in terms of public records, but the assessors do indicate 1900.
I actually went to the office today to look, because the one online was difficult, and I certainly don't think that it was readily discernible. Can you tell me when it was converted to a dwelling? And
So
the appropriate
we know
permit?
that there was at least a 1963 special permit for the 3-family up front. The back, there's really no records. I haven't taken a look at the old assessor's cards. I can request that from the zoning office. That might show some indication, but other than that, as far as we know, it has always been used as a dwelling.
I scoured the assessor's card, and I really couldn't find any indication of the use, and I certainly couldn't find any evidence that it was converted into a dwelling. That's sufficient for now, but I'm not, oh, I just have to point out one thing. You seem to be confusing density and dimensional requirements, because again, from Tophius, which is different and doesn't apply directly, it says, to the extent required to satisfy the dimensional requirements, such residential land cannot be subsequently built on or counted towards the lot coverage requirement of another structure, which is exactly what you're doing.
So what that would mean is I couldn't take credit for the square footage by building a duplex in the front, so getting 5 units in this case, and then also claiming square footage to put another building in the back, in the residential
building's
section.
already there.
I understand that, it's a pre-existing non-conforming structure and use. But what that means is you can't take double credit for it, and that's not what we're trying to do.
Well, it actually appears to be a pre-existing, non-complying structure, because you have no evidence that there was ever a permit granted to make it a dwelling.
This building, again, predates, is here for about 100 years. There's no records of any certificates of occupancy being issued 100 years ago. I'm not quite sure how we can satisfy, prove a negative in that sense.
Well, I can say that in 1963, which is past the May 19th, 1959 requirement, there is no mention of any dwelling in the back. It only mentions the conversion of the front structure from a single family to three. So I question,
So, Mr. Finner, I actually had the same thought in reviewing the special permit, but then I realized that that special permit was being issued under the conversion, similar to the conversion bylaws we have today, which allows for a structure to be divided into up to 4 units based on existing bedroom counts. So they converted that particular structure. It wasn't a special permit relative to the entire property, it was relative to that structure.
well, yes, except the front structure actually resides in the RB district as well, at least a portion of it. And again, I have to say, there's no mention in 1963. And also, it seems to me that this differs from the examples that you've presented to us, because the residential portion of this lot is already used up by a residence. So I don't see how you can get a second bite at the apple.
Because it's part of a multifamily scheme. Multifamily is any combination of units in multiple buildings. So that's what we have.
I leave it at that. Now, can you tell me the square footage of the business,
It's 14,976 square feet.
the front part? It's only 14,000. 14,976.
76.
That's all I have for the moment.
Council, do you know when the particular zoning districts were enacted or modified?
I don't, but I think Mr. Petrucci might.
I think it was 25.
And I'm not saying that to be facetious. I remember it coming up in a prior hearing.
Yes, and I have it in the file, but I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't it
It
like
was early
19
1900s.
Yeah, I was not trying to be flip there, please.
Wasn't it like 1925 or 1928?
It was in that area.
Yeah. Zoning came into effect in 1929, generally speaking. That's when the first zoning bylaws anywhere came out under the police powers.
I'll circle back about questions, just kind of, the factors of 240-12.1. Suzanne?
Kevin, when we first opened this hearing up, we had many abutters complaining of the way the whole area was kept. There was commercial business going on, there was lumber, there was fertilization equipment, there was all kinds of things. And if I look on this plan, what are you providing for storage for all these units?
So there is a basement proposed in the duplex. There is a basement in the three-family, the currently three-family. As we indicated at the last hearing, we'd be more than happy to provide a shed. We have more than enough lot coverage that we could provide additional sheds, and that's something we'd be happy to do.
Because the pictures, I mean, you saw them, and I live over that way, I drive by there all the time, and it's a mess. It's gotten cleaned up since you applied, definitely. But it was a mess for a long time.
You know, Mr. Shagnon has taken over as property manager fairly recently. He's been working on addressing the properties as he can, and, you know, there are a number of properties, and he's, you know, one fire at a time, unfortunately. But this has been addressed and will continue to be addressed.
So as of right now, there's 2 basements, that's it?
Well, there is a
That you're
basement in the single family at the rear, which has a bedroom. And there is a basement in the three-family. We're proposing a basement in the duplex.
Isn't there someone sleeping in that other
Well,
basement?
No, as I said, in the single family, there is, that's a bedroom in the basement. But in the three-family right now, there is a basement. But we would be happy to provide a shed
Okay, that's all I
for
have.
additional
for now.
storage.
I wasn't party to the original hearing, so I'll pass.
Tony?
I think you've done, I drove in there yesterday, I think they've done a good job cleaning the place up, so I congratulate them on that. I think your issue, once you read town councils, you'll understand that this project probably can't happen. But more than that, you don't have an acre. You shouldn't be getting any more density than you already have there. It's 6 units per acre, you don't have an acre, you simply do not have an acre. And I know that the argument is, well, we've done this in the past. Well, maybe we shouldn't have done this in the past. So I think you have to consider that you don't have the space for this.
So my response to that would only, you've touched on one of my responses, which is there's a number of examples of this having been done. However, you don't need an acre. We're not creating a new lot. If we're creating a new lot today, yes, we need an acre. But the density is up to 6 units per acre, which comes down to 1 unit for every 7,260 square feet.
But let me argue that we don't do things fractionally. I know that we've done that in the past. You get 6 units per acre. You don't get, it doesn't say anything about fractional units.
But it is up to 6 units per acre. So again, there's never been a requirement that you must have a minimum of an acre to do this. That's never been a requirement. And the bylaw doesn't say that you have to have an acre to do this. It says that because 40,000 square feet is not an acre either.
43,560 square feet.
It is, but our minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet.
But it's talking about an acre.
I understand, but.
And it doesn't, yes, and I agree, I'm sorry. I missed
So
what you grabbed.
I would just say, if the minimum lot size is less than an acre, and we have this provision that allows for up to 6 units per acre, I don't see, that would mean that no, lot that was only the minimum lot size could do this, which is simply not what the bylaw intends.
I agree that the bylaw is not as clear as it should be, and therefore, I'd have to use my best judgment and say, you do not get any more density on this lot because it's not fractional. Now, I could be convinced differently, but I don't see how you can get any more units on it. It's not a fractional issue.
I don't believe there's actually been a vote to release the town council opinion.
No, there is not.
And would the board be willing to do that so that I can respond somewhat intelligently to the opinion?
We'll bring that for discussion. I'm going to go through additional public comment or other board questions before we get to that. Please remind me if I don't get to that, though, please, counsel. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some of these examples he's given, it's apples and oranges. In the instance of 259, 263 Old Main Road, whatever number it is now, the back portion of the property was undeveloped, pristine, whatever. It had a shed had no primary dwelling. This one has a primary dwelling. So in effect, that residential portion, and you require 40,000 square feet, it's pre-existing, non-conforming. But that residential portion is used up. You can't use it again.
I actually didn't use 259, 263 as an example. I used 270 Old Main as an example, which I think is relevant.
So you were admitting that 259, 263 was a mistake?
Not by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that in terms of being applicable and analogous, 270 Old Main, where you had multifamily use in a general residence district, where you had other examples that I gave along West Falmouth, 685 West Falmouth Highway, we had a few years ago where the board found that an existing garage in the residential section serving a multifamily, or serving a duplex in the front portion of the lot was non-conforming enough to allow for an alteration. And the addition of a single-family house is not substantially more detrimental. There are a few ways you can get to this, whether it's through 240 10.2A, I wanted to say 3C, or 6.2. There are a few ways that we can get to this, and I think that there are a number of examples where it has been done and that are very analogous.
And I respond back that there are no precedents.
Before we go to public comments, my concern, Mr. Clower, I think it's piggybacking on Federucci's in terms of the total lot size, but more importantly, just from a practical standpoint, you have significant opposition from your neighbors. Their real concern is about density, and that is very much in keeping, I would suggest, with what town council saying that this is just not, it's just too much on this particular lot and is not in keeping or permissible under the case law. I would rather keep my comments just kind of on the practical side about what the standard is in 240, 12.1. Based on the testimony I've heard and the pushback from the neighborhood, I think it's a little bit too much in its present form with the number of units that you're proposing. So just kind of where I'm coming from. Well, I'll open this up.
Can I just, one more thing? I don't think you really addressed my concern and comparison, and I'll read again from Tophius. To the extent required to satisfy dimensional requirements. Such residential land, which we're talking about, cannot be subsequently built on, which it already is, or counted towards the lot coverage requirement of another structure, which is exactly what you're asking for with the duplex. There's no arguing that.
So I would respectfully say, Mr. Finneran, I think I have addressed that. I don't think that I'm going to change your mind tonight that I've addressed that. I'd prefer to open it up to public comment and then see where the board would like to proceed from there.
Any other follow-up questions before we go to public comment? Public comment. Then you'll be number 2, sir.
Thank you very much. My name's Allison Jessup. I live at 701 West Falmouth Highway. I think, as you all know, I've adamantly opposed this for the reasons that have been discussed here tonight. I did write a subsequent letter at 4:30 tonight, which I'd be happy to share, and it was more about additional questions if this did get approved of things that I would like in accommodation. And I'd be happy to hand that to you. I sent it to both Ashley and Noreen. I guess a couple of questions that I remembered Mr. Finneran had suggested at the last meeting, and I don't know if this was ever addressed, and he may remember this. Do we actually know the square footage of the duplex? That was never stated to us at the last meeting. If you folks may remember that or not.
I think
We never got
have it.
clarification on that, so that's a concern on, and I'd be happy to wait to see if we know
Yeah.
the square footage of the duplex. I think that needs to be clarified.
Well, it's 2,358 square feet and a 3-family on the cottage, so.
How can there not be in here?
It doesn't matter much.
So if they'd like to provide the square footage at some point, I think that's something that we really need to know. I think that's an important point to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
There's only
Well,
5% lot
it's-
coverage.
Okay, that was something that, it would be nice to know what the square footage is. The other concern is that I've heard the bedroom size. Kevin Clower did mention 9 bedrooms. If you didn't hear it and you play back the tape, you'll see that. I've consistently heard 10 bedrooms. This is where things get very gray for me. Number of units and bedrooms, and I know I don't need to beat a dead horse, but are there 2 bedrooms in the cottage? 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs? Can somebody confirm that?
Yes.
Okay, and that's 1 unit with 2 bedrooms. And then I believe the big home is going to be turned into 2 units?
Excuse me, things need to go through the chair. This is not a general question and answer.
Sorry, so I guess I'm curious again, on how many bedrooms? And, other than that, I don't really have, the usual concerns that I've already addressed. And I am in opposition of this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi,
Thank you.
Kurt Jessup, Allison's husband at 701 West Falmouth Highway, obviously in a butter, and we do very much appreciate your due diligence with regard to what technically can be done on an acre, even though we don't have an acre. I would hate to do something based on things that have done in the past. We all sit here and state, well, it was done on, Old Main Road, it was done here, it was done there. When do we stop doing that? And when do we start doing the right thing, which is trying to retain the integrity of where we live? I mean, that's super important to everyone in this room. And I guess I appeal to you to consider that as well. How far forward, how fast do we move before we destroy what currently exists? And I do appreciate Mr. Petrucci's comment, and I agree with you. It's less than an acre. How can you do it if it's less than an acre? I mean, that's the primary question at hand. Thank you very much.
Can I just,
You have a follow-up? Sure.
I just address, to address your question, I mean, this board has no precedence. We might have made decisions in the past, but we also readily admit that it's possible that we've made mistakes. That's why every case, we try to look at it with a new, fresh set of eyes.
I understand that, but from a legal perspective, with all deference to Kevin, I keep hearing, well, you've done it here, you've done it there. I don't think that's a very good reason to to in
And-
fact do it again if it's not the right thing.
And a lot of
Isn't a
it,
reason.
a lot of Kevin's references are to condominiums, not exactly to a two-family structure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Other public comment? Sir?
Yes, I'm Brian Toholke. I'm a direct owner in the back right here. And I wrote a letter initially. I've written a subsequent letter. My main concern is in terms of the future. I'm very much opposed to having the possibility that even farther down the line, something more may happen here. Right now, it seems, I don't know about all the arguments that are going about here about specific lot sizes and spaces and all of that, but it seems right at the moment that it may be permissible to have a total of 5 units here, 2 bedrooms per unit, which means that there could potentially be 10 cars parked there, maybe 12, maybe 15, I don't know. What I would like to see is if this does go forward with 5 units, that somehow there be restrictions put in place. I don't know if that's the board to set those restrictions, to be written into a deed, whatever it may be. But I would like to see that there are no more than 5 units, no more than 10 parking spaces, because we're sitting right in the back there. We're facing a parking lot right now. Now, Jared has done a wonderful job of putting up a fence and trees here, which eventually will grow and kind of cover that. But looking down the line for 10, 20, whatever years, in terms of the visual impact for our lot immediately behind and the value of our property, I would like to see those restrictions put in place. And as I say, whether that can be done via deed or whatever, that of course is entirely up to the board. The other thing I would like to see is that if this does go forward, that the fence and evergreen trees and all of that arrangement in terms of masking toward the back of our property, it'd be written such that that is required to be maintained in perpetuity, so that we don't have a future situation where we're staring into a big building complex. Thank you very much.
Hi, Tammy Bowman, 708 West Falmouth Highway. As I was listening to this about the storage and more sheds going up, if we let this to go forward, it's gonna look like such a circus with this house and then the new house, the new duplex, and then more sheds to store things. Now, I don't know if that has a full basement or not, but with the history of that house, I think it's a crawl space, so there would be no storage there as well. So we need to, I would like to, find out exactly what he was talking about. But everything else, I oppose the whole situation. Hopefully it will not go forward from here. Thank you.
Good evening. I've got a frog in my throat. Oh my God. How embarrassing. Good evening. I'm Cheryl Manise. I live at 708 West Falmouth Highway. I just have a couple of things. One thing in particular, I really don't think this has anything to do with the pre-existing. I don't know all the addresses that have been mentioned with all these special assessment or whatever. Like Ideal Spot Motel, I think, is one of them. None of these buildings or the structures are up front and personal. You can't see them. The setbacks are setbacks. That's how they're supposed to be. This building is not set back. It's on a hill. So when my sister, the fifth generation, and the fifth generation Bowman house is what we're talking about here. You come up the driveway and there's the house. I don't care how many units you guys put in this place, but we're talking about structure, it's like was said previously, apples and oranges. There's just no way that it doesn't impact the neighborhood. And I had something else very important. It was about the non-conforming. It really, like I said, it's regardless, and I really lost it. But seriously, it has nothing to do with whatever else has been built in West Falmouth. This is right there. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. The building in back, you know why there's no record? It was a chicken coop. Seriously. And then all of a sudden, underhandedly, it's a house. I know it's been there now for years, but come on. Let's, I know it's costing everybody a lot of money, and it's all about the money.
Now I can ask.
You can ask Grandpa Bowman what the hell it was. Sorry
That's-
for the word.
That's exactly, the Bowmans have been around since God was a guppy.
That's right.
Is there anyone who can give us the history of that back building, which is either an accessory building, a single-family cottage, or
chicken coop.
or a chicken coop,
Right.
or a fourth residential? Is there anyone with pictures or
Yes,
that
there
they
is.
could produce
We
for
can
our next
produce. We're
hearing?
gonna go see
Because
Grandpa
that
Bowman
would
up the hill.
that may very well have considerable bearing.
But how many special permits? No, they got it after. You know, I understand, you know, if
There's-
something's being used for 20 years of one thing, but then,
Not if it's non-complying, it's different than non-conforming. So such information would help us. So if
well, thank you.
anybody could scour their history and photos or whatever, such evidence may prove
Okay, thank you.
weighty.
That's
Other
all I
public
have.
comment? Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment? Okay. Board discussion, Frank?
Well, I have a kind of a rule that if we ask for town council's opinion, we should be prepared to accept it and perhaps follow it. And I know it affects my vote. But on the other hand, I don't see any reason to maintain its confidentiality. We're not involved in litigation or anything like that. This is a strict opinion on a hearing before this board. So I would make a motion to release town council's opinion to Mr. Clower. But at the same time, I do not want to get into a discussion with him tonight about what it says. He can take it back to his office and read it, and come back some other time, and we can talk about it. But to do it on the fly tonight would be inappropriate.
I agree with that.
I disagree. It was given to me in a sealed envelope by town council, and I think it should be his decision whether it's released or not.
That's our decision, not his.
Really is. Jerry?
In the past, the letter, and I don't know what this one said, it's town council's, it's our opinion whether to release the legal opinion. Although I may not be a voting member in this, I think in this particular case, we should release the legal opinion and add on to what Mr. Duffy said, that if there's going back and forth between that legal opinion, maybe you should talk to town council and not argue it in front of us, because then we're gonna bounce it back to town council.
I'm not quick enough to counter it tonight, so don't worry.
No, but I mean, next 2 weeks from now, if you say, oh,
No, I would like the chance to discuss it with town council.
that's what I'm saying.
And, you know, it's hard to do that without saying it.
Sam, feelings?
I second Frank.
And I'm voting. Do you have any care to weigh in?
Abstain. No.
Tony?
I agree. I agree
Release?
that we should allow them to have that.
So is that a motion?
He
I made the motion, and
Seconded by
seconded by
Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Who's voting? Tony, yeah.
Tony's on this one. Scott was not here. All those in favor to release town council's opinion publicly? Say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain.
4 in favor, 1 abstention, no one in opposition. We'll get that to you.
Yep, if Noreen or Ashley can send it tomorrow, that's perfectly fine.
In terms of, does the board want to close, or do we want to continue, or?
I think it would be inappropriate to close if I'm gonna be discussing with
Yeah,
town
I would
council.
agree.
Yeah, I think motion to continue is in order, isn't it?
Yeah, I would suggest that. Do we have a date?
If we could not do the 7th, if I could not do these back-to-back again, that'd be awesome.
I don't like more than one contentious hearing a night.
14th.
The 14th of, December 14th?
Yeah.
Procedural question?
We're gonna have nothing but content for the next 6 months.
This is true. I'll make a motion to continue this matter to December the 14th. Is there a second? Second is Suzanne. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are continued to the 14th.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your consideration.
Procedural question.
Yep.
Can Mr. Peterson invoke the Mullen Rule if he just missed it? I mean, it may be important, he's not listening to me, so.
He's already
Scott
appointed.
invoked the Mullen Rule.
We're not short.
No, but I mean, yeah, we're not, okay.
Short, so there's no.
Yes,
Yeah,
but at this
it
point-
may be, okay. Oh, yeah, that happened to me once. Someone was early. That thing can just.
Galasso.
What the hell is this? All right, we're up to Anderson. No, we're
Next
doing
up,
Galasso.
under new hearings, we have 08223 Galasso, 545 Main Street, Falmouth, requesting a special permit to redevelop building for dwelling units, commercial accommodations, and restaurant, and appealing the building commissioner's determination.
All right, an appeal. Wait. All right, I have Michael Galasso, 107 Lakeview Ave, Falmouth, Mass., applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240, 6.2B, and 2409.4A, and 2410.1 of the Code of Falmouth to redevelop building for dwelling units, commercial accommodations, and restaurant pursuant to MGL 48 and 8 and 15 and 24012A2 in parentheses of the Code of Falmouth. The applicant is appealing the building commissioner's determination. The subject property is 545 Main. It's appealed.
Council, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth attorney with Ament Clower, and sometimes Attorney Clower lets me come over here still. I represent the applicant, 545, Bushwood 545 LLC. The principal is Michael Galasso, who is here. Michael is, as he'll explain to you, has a lot of experience in creating affordable housing or workforce housing. Maybe you've heard that Falmouth has a housing crisis and that the need for affordable housing and workforce housing is unmanageably large. This project at 545 Main Street is a good effort towards addressing the problem. It involves the conversion of an existing building, that is the former Falmouth Nursing Home, which had 121 beds, into housing in part, and which will include affordable housing, and commercial accommodations, which will be for short-term rental to transients here for employment or study. Mr. Galasso will describe the project and has extensive plans to show you for what I think you'll agree is a wonderful project. But I'm going to begin by addressing the question of the appeal that has been filed. The project has been approved by the Falmouth Planning Board under the relatively new, it's about 2 years old, mixed residential and commercial overlay district bylaw, so-called Mr. COD. It was passed by town meeting expressly for the purpose of encouraging the development of affordable housing in appropriate locations, mostly on Main Street, on the sewer, and that's what that bylaw was for. I'd like to, hopefully I can, there we go, pull over and open for you the bylaw itself. and address certain of the provisions that are in the bylaw. Starting with the definitions that apply to the bylaw. First, mixed-use development under the bylaw, as approved by the planning board, is as of right. Notice at the top of the page in yellow, underlined in red, it says that development may proceed under the zoning bylaw without the need for a special permit. It goes on to say without any other discretionary zoning approval. And what is mixed-use development? Mixed-use development is a development containing a mix of residential use and non-residential uses, including, and this language is key, without limitation, commercial, institutional, and other uses, as well as modifications to existing buildings. Very important in this case, where this is all about an existing building, which has now been vacant for about 3 years, and cries out for a good use. Next definition that I've underlined or highlighted is the permit granting authority. It says the planning board shall be the sole permit granting authority pursuant to any provision of this bylaw. This bylaw means the mixed residential commercial overlay district bylaw. And then we go to what does it mean to have a by right use? It says the following uses shall be allowed by right as set forth under this section. I've just read that to you. Then it says provided that all necessary permits, orders, or approvals required by local, state, or federal law are also obtained, including site plan review by the planning board. Then it lists mixed use development, which I've told you what that is. So one of the questions is, when the bylaw as adopted by town meeting refers to getting other orders, does that mean other sections of the zoning bylaw which are in conflict with the language I've just given to you? And we're sure that it did not mean that. And I'd like to go back, and I'll give you some examples of why it doesn't mean that. I'd like to go back to this without limitation in the definition of mixed use. We had a definition of mixed use in the zoning bylaw before the Mr. Cod was adopted. And I've got that here to show you. I think I can see if I can get this right. This is the previous zoning bylaw. Notice it starts by saying what is permitted mixed uses, and this is in the business redevelopment zoning district. Residential/commercial uses. It says any, notwithstanding section 240.18.1, which is a mixed use section, which requires a special permit, any combination of permitted, there's the key, of permitted community service, business, and commercial uses together with residential uses. When the Mr. Cod zoning bylaw was adopted, town meeting took out the word permitted, and they put in the words without limitation. What did they mean to do? They're saying you could have a special permit use. It didn't have to be a permitted use. Permitted under the zoning bylaw means what are those uses allowed by right without a special permit. This bylaw says it's without limitation and it doesn't include the permitted. Okay, so why are we here? Because the building commissioner made a determination that even though we went to the planning board and got the approvals under the Mr. Cod bylaw, and they made all the findings that they needed to make to approve what we want to do, he decided that, well, I think I have his letter here too. His letter says that commercial accommodations are not listed in the bylaw as allowed by right. And they're not listed under the definition of mixed use. Well, restaurants aren't mentioned in the bylaw. Offices aren't mentioned in the bylaw. Laundromats aren't mentioned in the library. No specific uses are allowed in the bylaw. What the bylaw says is any combination of residential and non-residential uses without limitation, and they don't have to be permitted. So even a use that requires, absent the Mr. Cod bylaw, absent being on Main Street, served by the sewer and so on, that would require a special permit. You don't need to get a special permit for a Mr. Cod project. What did it mean when the bylaw refers to other permits? It doesn't mean other sections of the zoning bylaw which would be in conflict with it. It doesn't mean you need a special permit if your building is over 10,000 square feet, which normally requires a special permit to have a commercial building over 10,000 square feet. It doesn't mean that if you have a non-conforming building, you need to come for a special permit under section 240.10.2, which is the section that's for non-conforming buildings. We have a non-conforming building. We have a 3-story building, which wouldn't be allowed to be built today. And there are other non-conformances. But this Mr. Cod bylaw specifically said, let's get it. And find it. The bylaw, and I've highlighted this section, gives the planning board the authority to allow changes to a non-conforming building, provided it's not more non-conforming than the existing building, and they determine that the change or alteration is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming building. Did you ever hear that language before? That's the language that you would apply if you were granting a special permit for a non-conforming building. But the planning board is specifically given that authority in this case. This was supposed to be one-stop permitting, and it's recommended to have this one-stop permitting in the town's comprehensive plan. Those specific words aren't used, but one of the elements of it is to streamline the permitting for affordable housing. So what did we mean by the other permits? I think sure there are local permits you need. You need a street opening permit. You may need a permit under the flow neutral bylaw from the select board. You may need a conservation commission permit. You certainly need a building permit. That's what the local permits also being needed refers to, not other provisions of the zoning bylaw that are in conflict with Mr. Cod bylaw. So, with the written information I've given you that reviews the things I've said, with what I think is the very, very clear language that a special permit should not be required, and that the planning board is the sole permit granting authority, we don't think we need to be here for a special permit. We don't think we need to be here. Now, having said that, if you decide that a special permit is needed, and maybe you'll do that now, is not needed, maybe you may decide it's not needed, then I guess we'd be done. If you decide it's needed, then I hope you grant the special permit for a great project, which Mr. Galassa will describe to you. And how you want to deal with this, you can hear the testimony about this project, and then give your thinking as, do we need this special permit? Or you can discuss it now, and I'll try to answer your questions about this issue. So,
questions for the appellant from the board. Start with you, Tony.
If you're saying that you don't need a special permit, but then on the other hand, if we decide that you need a special permit, under what conditions what part of the bylaw will you be applying for that special permit if you don't need a special permit?
Well, we've applied for a special permit, and we also appealed. We submitted two separate applications. The staff, in thinking about it, decided that this should be treated as a single application, and that the board could take up the question. In fact, I think that's probably correct, because there's case law that says that if somebody has applied for a special permit, but the board decides that they didn't need it, the board should say so, and the board can make that determination. So we actually applied, we actually appealed the building commissioner's decision. We actually did that after we had filed for the special permit, a few days later, because the building commissioner hadn't issued his decision in writing at the time we filed for the special permit, and we needed that in writing. He then gave me the letter that I've shown you, and we filed for the appeal, and the two were combined. So, if you decide that we need a special permit, or if you're going to proceed, hear the case, and then decide whether we needed it or not, we've applied for it, and we've applied for it under the section of the bylaw that is for commercial accommodations.
Thank you.
Scott?
Great anachronism, Mr. Cod. Okay. It specifically states that all local and state permitting are still in place. Is that, are still in place?
Oh, yes. Well, what that's referring to is that if we only wanted commercial accommodations and we weren't doing any affordable housing, which was not the purposes of the Mr. Cod bylaw, that which is an overlay district, the underlying zoning remains in effect. You can do all sorts of things in the business redevelopment district, but it's only a Mr. Cod project if you comply with the requirements to provide affordable housing, which we're doing, and it can be a mixed-use project so that it includes affordable housing as well as any combination of business or commercial or institutional uses.
So, under Mr. Cod, commercial accommodations don't require a special permit, is what you're telling me?
That's correct. That's exactly what we're saying, if it's a Mr. Cod project.
Okay.
You don't have to do a Mr. Cod project in the Mr. Cod overlay district. If all you want to do is have a restaurant on Main Street, go have a restaurant. If you want to have a restaurant on the first floor and a bunch of housing above that includes affordable housing, and it complies with certain other requirements. For instance, the density allowed is different if it's rental housing, which all of this would be, as opposed to affordable. Then it's a Mr. Cod project. And whether it's a restaurant or whether it's commercial accommodations, that still clearly, in our mind, meets the definition of mixed use, and that's what the planning board has agreed with, and that we've met all of the requirements.
Do you have the, or did you read the town meeting minutes of Mr. Cod, and did they speak specifically about commercial accommodations?
Yes, actually, I do have them, and I submitted them to the planning board. I have a copy of them, so I'll submit them to you tonight. But I will tell you that a couple things about it. First, the words commercial accommodations are not mentioned anywhere in the town meeting minutes. Nobody drilled down about these specific different uses. Certainly, I think there's no question that commercial accommodations are commercial and that they fit within the mixed-use definition of any combination of residential and commercial business institutional use without limitation. But that the specifics never came up, just like the specifics aren't in the bylaw. The representatives of the Board of Appeals did go to that town meeting meeting, and recommended against the passage of it because they felt that the Board of Appeals should have a say in it, that the people should have a right of appeal, and the additional procedural requirements for a special permit. But the bylaw is pretty darn clear. I mean, it couldn't be clearer. No special permit shall be required. The planning board shall be the sole permit granting authority, and so on. And town meeting passed the bylaw.
Could you read from the minutes? Did you say you had the minutes?
Yes, I
handy?
do. So, in the section that I sent to the planning board is not very long. I can read them. I think it'd be useful if I put them in the context of the letter that I sent the planning board at the time. I said, Mr. Codd clearly avoids the special permit process for those otherwise special permit uses and conditions. Town meeting understood that. To encourage economic development of affordable housing, the approval process would be changed. The approval process would be changed. The minutes to the November 2021 town meeting, Article 3, show that a member of the ZBA spoke in opposition to the transfer of approval authority from ZBA special permit to the planning board site plan review. And see the minutes that I've attached, pages 86 and 87, so I have those. I can read you what the ZBA's representative said. What I highlighted at the time was the ZBA member saying, by making this a by right use and not a special permit use. Remember, those definitions, if you're going to do it this way, if you're going to provide the affordable housing, it's a by right use if you meet the requirements which the planning board found we did. You're bypassing appealability by neighbors and neighborhoods. They can't appeal the project. That's not quite true. There can be an appeal, but it's a much more complicated thing that involves appealing the building permit. It's not the direct appeal you have from a decision of the ZBA. But that's what town meeting decided.
And expensive.
Oh, yes, it's very expensive. But members of the, well, I'm not sure if you're referring to the expense of an appeal.
Yes, I am.
Of any appeal.
You're denying the public in your definition.
Well, the public does get notice of site plan review, and there are, of course, many, many, many uses in the zoning bylaw that don't require a special permit. And many things, restaurants, for instance, might have a lot of impact on traffic and other issues. But it's what town meeting did. Town meeting passed the bylaw. I've shown you the language. It's not my language. This is the language of the zoning bylaw, and it couldn't be clearer. The board member went on to say at town meeting, the zoning board has always been the authority on nonconformities. Okay? They've written in here that on any of the non-conforming buildings that are on these lots, the planning board will make the decision if it's an increase in nonconformity or not. The planning board's not involved. If you didn't do this transfer, the zoning board would have to be the non-conforming authority in all these actual same lot. I'm not asking you whether you think this was a good bylaw or not. We know that the Board of Appeals opposed this. Town meeting passed it. It's the law here. Language says what the language says. And why one would interpret this effort to encourage the development of affordable housing is somewhat beyond me. I think I've thought a lot about this. Yeah, the language could be clearer. Certainly we didn't have to say you can have commercial accommodations as part of mixed use.
Would have been nice.
Well, yeah, it would have been nice if we said you can have a restaurant. It would have been nice if you can have a laundromat. You can nice if all, we
Can
wouldn't
I
have
ask you
the
one more
issue.
question, Attorney Arm? In the planning board's, in the file, in the planning board on page 25, paragraph 6, it says, "If required by the building commissioner, a special permit must be obtained from the zoning board of appeals."
Yeah.
On account of the commercial accommodations component of the mixed-use Mr. Cod project. I'd love to see this move forward. It's complex. I'm not sure about 2 bunk rooms, 21 single rooms without bathrooms. I'd love to see this go through, but I do think that you probably do have to come in front of us.
Well, let me comment
It's
on
just
what...
my feeling, and I'll pass on to
I
Susan.
would very much like to comment on what you just said. That language about leaving it up to the building permit is simply a statement of the law, of course. Building commissioner decides what needed, subject to the right to appeal, as we've done to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But I will tell you that the planning board agrees unanimously that a special permit should not be required. I think there's a member of the planning board here tonight who would confirm that.
I read the file, I understand what your statement is, but they're not the zoning board of appeals, so I'll move on. Thank you for your reply.
Suzanne?
I have 2 questions. One's technical. When I looked at the plan, there were 2 lots, Lot 3 and Lot 11. Do you have anything to show that they were combined?
Well, the building straddling those lot lines, I believe, was built in 1969.
Okay.
There are many, many situations that there are lots that have been merged. There's only one tax bill issued. There is, I will tell you, absolutely no reason whatsoever to go to the very, very small expense to record a deed that would show them as one. We can do that. It's completely
We
unnecessary.
just don't get plans like this very often with 2 lots. That's all.
And it's probable that, I don't recall from the title examination, it's probable that the 2 lots, more than 50 years ago, were assembled, perhaps purchased from 2 different sources.
Okay. And the other one is, you kind of have alluded that you're going to go towards the 10% of the town, the threshold for affordable housing.
Well, any affordable housing is both essentially needed and contributes to
It's needed,
to
but I
that.
didn't know, are you applying with mass housing, or?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, so you're gonna
One
have-
of the requirements of the Mr. Cod bylaw is that the housing must be permanently, which isn't always the case.
Right.
Permanently restricted for affordable housing, that is at least the 25% of the housing units, and that they be approved with what used to be called DHCD. It's now called the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Yes, of course, we're going to do that.
And how do you deal when there's no bathroom? There's, I mean,
I'm going to let
mass
Mr.
housing deal?
Galasso make his
Okay.
presentation and tell you about the type of units that are proposed to serve, a lot of people and to make an effective use of this, reuse of this building.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Mr. Curran?
I'll just start out by saying I agree with the building inspector. Nowhere does this say that Mr. Cod supersedes all other sections of the bylaws. And there's special allowances for commercial requirements. And by no means are you going to convince me that Mr. Cod was intended for commercial accommodations. It just, it makes no sense. And I have to argue that the members of the zoning board that attended that meeting were entirely correct and prescient, and we're here tonight. That's proof of that. That's how I'm voting.
Mr. Duffy?
Well, I've read the material that have been submitted in support of this application. I've also read the relevant zoning bylaws. Been listening to Mr. Ament tonight explain it. And I think that if you look at section 247.5D, which says the following uses shall be allowed by right, and that's the Mr. Cott language in the Mr. Cott bylaw. Something that is allowed by right means you can just do it if you submit an application that complies with all the requirements, which they have done to the planning board. A mixed-use development, as defined in 243, says a development containing a mix of residential uses and non-residential uses, including, without limitation, the language Mr. Ament referred to, commercial, institutional, and other uses. So I think that includes commercial accommodations, it includes restaurants, it includes laundromats, it includes a bunch of other things. Another comment I will make is that even though the building commissioner did issue a letter telling Mr. Ament's client that he had to apply to this board for a special permit, that letter itself is appealable. And we can determine whether or not the special permit is necessary. The language in the planning board decision that if the building commissioner requires a special permit, you must apply for one, does not take away the right of appealing the decision of the of the building commissioner and his decision. So I think that Mr. Ament has made a convincing presentation here tonight.
Let me get to Mr. Tamas and come back to you, Mr.
I agree with Frank. I was on the board, and I remember some of the discussion, and I think part of it was ceding responsibility between the two boards, which I disagreed with because I think a single permitting process, like Mr. Cod envisioned, is entirely right. Planning board is very much concerned about the same things we are. Now, the only other thing I'm going to ask you is, do we need to have a vote today whether we're upholding the appealing the building commissioners?
Yeah.
Yes, my intention to take this is two pieces. The first is the issue of the appeal.
Do we put one in front of the other?
Yes, we're going to start out with the appeal issue.
Oh, okay. And since I'm not voting, I'll stop.
Excuse me, before the board does vote on the issue, I was asked by the building commissioner to request a continuance in order to submit materials relevant to the appeal.
Well.
No.
It's not unreasonable.
Would have been nice if he was here tonight.
Yeah,
but-
that's also not unreasonable.
It'd be nice, too, if we got it.
Just to counter his comment, I don't think that the public's right of appeal should ever be taken away. We're their last line of defense, short of the extremely expensive way that Mr. Amont mentioned, and I think that's entirely unfair to the taxpayer and the resident. And again, I have to say, nowhere in Mr. Cod does it say that it supersedes all other sections of the bylaw. And that may very well have been the intent of the planning board, but I don't think they wrote it well enough, and I don't see where it says what Mr. Amont purports.
Well, if we're going to hear from the building commissioner, we've got no choice but to wait till he sends us something.
And could we, suggestion, could we send that document to town council to get a legal opinion? If it's,
Now, let's get the
Okay.
decision, let's hear from the building commissioner first before we do anything like that.
okay.
We're looking at a continuation at this point.
Well, let me say that if a non-town official came to the scheduled meeting and said, I haven't submitted anything yet, but I'd like to later, I really question whether you you'd be sympathetic to that. I have the greatest respect for the building commissioner, but this issue's been going on for, the correspondence I read to you was in June. So I'm a little disappointed with that. However, this matter is worthy of your consideration, your thoughtful consideration, and of course, we can agree to a continuance. Perhaps that begs the question of what to do with the other part of the matter, which is the special permit application. I think that the question of whether we need a special permit or not is simply a matter of law. It's simply a matter of reading the bylaw and making a decision. I don't think you're ready to make that decision tonight, despite the presentation I've made. So that'll be continued. But I hate in a project that Mr. Galasso now, for this project so supported by so many people, he's been before the town boards now for 10 months in a project which is in a process that's supposed to be streamlined. It's not how we're going to get affordable housing done. So my suggestion, respectfully, is that you proceed with the special permit, hearing the special permit. You may decide that, and I would certainly think you should, and I hope you will decide that the special permit that should be granted, that the benefits of this project outweigh any detriment there might be, which I don't think there's much, if any. But we won't care so much, although I think it's for precedent purposes, it's important to get the answer on this legal question. We just want to get this project approved so that we could start start creating the housing. So I don't want to continue the portion of the discussion that concerns the special permit.
So as to the issue of the appeal, do we have a date, a short date?
So, part of the problem is you have a pretty heavy agenda. You have town meeting, you have Thanksgiving, and you obviously don't want to meet till midnight. So the date I had penciled in was December 14, because I think you just don't want to be here till midnight to finish up your cases, so.
Is there any appetite from the board to take something earlier than that, despite the robust agendas we have?
We're going to have to get used to it. When do we start? That's the question. Because it's going to be 6 months of weekly meetings.
Pretty dark.
This slack
Personally, I would prefer to take this up sooner rather than later. The issue of the appeal could be dispositive of the special permit, one way or the other.
I'd like to find out the answer to that question.
Yeah,
I'd like it
exactly.
quickly.
Yes.
Short date, please.
I mean, the only other date really is December 7th, so you're talking about a week.
Could we move it up to 6 rather than 6:30? Oh, that's another question.
Yeah, we can start earlier that evening.
Okay.
We'll start at 6 that
December
evening.
7th?
Yep.
Did you say December 7th?
December 7th, 6 p.m.
I can't be here that night.
14.
14th.
Are you talking about continuing the presentation for the special permit?
The issue of just the appeal. We're going to hear from you about the special permit next.
Perfect. I think that's just great.
Move to continue the appeal to December the 14th. Is there a second? Give that to Scott. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Appeal is continued to December 14th. Floor is yours on the special permit, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Constructive grant.
Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Michael Galasso. I'm the developer and the applicant for this project. Been working on it for a little while. My family and I have been residents of Falmouth since 1961. Graduate of all the schools here. I just thought I'd give you a brief background of myself because I don't know all the board members. I haven't been here for a little while. So let me tell you a little bit about, let me try to get the right arrow here. There we go. After graduating here, I went to graduate school out at San Diego and started my development company out there. I've been developing affordable housing my whole professional life, starting back in 1986, along with my partner, Jim Barone. And I wanted to put this up because this is an example of similar projects to what we're trying to do with the nursing home, which are small accommodations, studios, efficiency units, SROs. Micro units has a lot of different names. I've developed ones that have bathrooms in the units. I have developed ones, brand new ones that have bathrooms down the halls. I renovated a YMCA that has bathrooms down the hall. So I've been in this business for a long time. The image of the project at the top is out in Sacramento, California. The other two that look a little historic were brand new construction. They're in a historic district in downtown San Diego. This is an example of a project we built in Little Italy in downtown San Diego, where we maintained the historic building, which is the white building on the ground floor with the blue awnings, and then added to it, and there was 81 rooms there on 8,000 square feet. So if you talk about density, this was 81 rooms on 8,000 square feet. The other two projects that I showed you, the first one was 50 rooms on 5,000 square feet and 100 rooms on 10,000 square feet. It's one of the most dense housing that you can develop. When I came back in 2004 to take care of my mom, who was a little ill, I started working with a nonprofit, and one of the projects we did was converted this building in New Bedford that had a massive fire. I like to take on projects that are a little bit tough. A lot of people told me don't even try to tackle this project. So it was turned into, after being vacant and suffering a fire, it turned into 7 affordable housing units. It's an old captain's house on 6th Street in downtown New Bedford. Has the chairman of the Falmouth Economic Development Corporation, along with two of my members are here this evening, two of my former board members. We did a couple of projects. One was the old railroad station, the bus station in town, that Mass Development owned the land. I'm sorry, Mass DOT owned the land, and we were able to get a ground lease from them for 99 years. Mr. Fox was very instrumental in that. The state was going to spend $6 million to renovate this 2,000 square foot building. We did it for $3 million, and I think it's a good asset to the town. Also, during my tenure as the chairman of the Falmouth Economic Development Corporation, we took the landfill that was closed for a number of years, was vacant, was costing the town about $80,000 a year, and we've developed a 6-megawatt solar field out there that now produces over $750,000 a year for the town of Falmouth with no investment from the town of Falmouth. That's a substantial return on investment when you think about it. This is a 40B project that I developed in North Falmouth, opened up in December. There are 5 duplex buildings there for 10 units. They're all affordable, between 80% and 100% of median income. We have 9 great single moms that live there right now with 22 children. And it's been a very successful project. We had over 100 applications for this project, 100 applications for 10 units. Of those 100 applications, 80 of them were all qualified to live there. Unfortunately, we only had 10 units. So I want to spend a little bit of time to tell you about the property and a little bit of the history of it. So The property was bought by John Hellman, who was an architect in town back in the 50s and 60s. This is the old commercial accommodations that were on the property. That was torn down in 1967 to make way for the nursing home. This is the original rendering of the nursing home. It's a mid-century modern building. It was designed, as I said, by Mr. Hellman, who had his offices at 44 Scranton. You know the building at 44 Scranton, at the corner of Scranton and Robbins Road? It is a very modern-looking mid-century building. That's where his offices were. It happens to be where I have my offices now, too, which I was there long before I got involved in this project and really didn't know Mr. Hellman. It's a good aerial view of the project site. So the back portion of it, so you got the round building, and the back portion of it was added in 1971. So in total, they had 121 beds there. It was built by a contractor out of New Bedford called Sullivan and Foster. The reason I provide this information to you is that the building has some historic significance to it. And because of that historic significance, it determines what we can do not only the outside of the building, but also the interior of the building too. One of the financing sources that we're looking at using for this building is historic tax credits. And so we're not sure whether or not we can change the location of the walls in the round part of the building where the units only have half bathrooms or no bathrooms. So until that's determined by the Department of the Park Service in Washington, D.C., and also our historic consultant, although we've looked at revising those rooms so that we can have individual bathrooms in them, right now we're not sure we can do that without disrupting the opportunity for it to be historically designated. So this gives you some more views of around the building. So right now there's 71 parking spots there. And that was sort of how we came up with the 71 units for the building. But because of the requirements for the fire department to have a 16-foot wide lane to go all the way around the building, and also because of the new parking requirements as far as the width and the length of the parking stalls, I thought the cars were bigger back in the 60s, but I guess they're bigger now, so we have bigger parking spots. So we've lost some of the parking spots because of those two requirements. And we're down to, I believe it's 59 parking spots now. Although our parking study that we had done showed that only 50 was really necessary for this project. Over the years, we have massively overparked affordable housing projects. A lot of people think that people who live in affordable housing projects have multiple cars. That's just not the case. So one of the amenities I want to provide, and amenities to the town too, is this civic plaza that would be in front of the building. So this will be a place, as you know, this side of Main Street, as you walk down the east part of Main Street, a lot of parking lots, buildings are pushed back. There's not a lot of space, civic space. So this would be a civic plaza where people can stop. They can enjoy a cup of coffee from the cafe that we have there. There'll be some art there that would change periodically. And we think this will be a great asset to our community and something that we want to provide. So Tom Lee's our landscape architect. This gives you an idea of the site plan and the landscape around there. We'll talk a little bit further about the accommodations we're making instead of having, a whole bunch of cars on the site. But you see in these corners, there's a total of 16 bike lockers that we'll have that will provide storage for up to 32 bikes. This is the site plan that was finally approved by the planning board. I need to get to, yeah, please. We had to break this down into two different presentations, so it was so large. So, who are we building this for? Who's going to be our residents that are going to live there? So we've toured quite a few folks through the building throughout the last year and a half. We've taken a lot of our governmental officials through there. I think you see letters in our files from many of them supporting the project. We've taken people from the hospital, from Hui, MBL. We have many restaurateurs. This project started because I was approached by a number of the restaurateurs in town who know me and know that I do affordable housing. And we're looking for a place to house their seasonal and year-round employees. So one of those restaurateurs is here this evening, happens to be a partner in the project, Alberto. His family owns La Savetta down on Main Street. And they have a need to house J1 students. J1 students can't come here to work during the summer unless they have housing. They can't just come here and then find housing. They have to identify before they come. So we haven't been able to bring that many J1 students here in the last few years, just because there hasn't been any housing for them. You know, when I grew up and worked up in the Heights during the 60s and 70s, we had a number of guest houses up there. The old
Oak Crest.
Yes. Thanks, Jim. I figured you would know. That we tore down, that the town tore down. And I used to provide housing for the college students that would come here and work during the summer. And our town tore that down, bought it, tore it down, made a little park there. And so we lost a lot of the housing. We lost Brothers Four, which is another place, the casino. Those weren't only nightclubs. Many of them had housing above them, too. So we were housing a lot of the people that came here and worked during the summer for us up in the Heights, and a lot of those places are gone. So this is an attempt to sort of replace that a little bit. And yes, you know, it may not be perfect, it may not have bathrooms in every single room, but if you talk to some of the J1 students who come here, and some of them who stay and get permanent visas and maybe work at Estia, and you talk to those young ladies, they'll tell you that when they came here, they lived 7 or 8 to a room at a motel in East Falmouth with 1 bathroom. So having something like this where they have their own room and their own bath is a real luxury for them. So we got to remember who we're trying to attract here and who customers will be. One of the other things was I met with the former police chief, and he told me, which I was surprised, that this would be great. When he recruits a new police officer, they may not know whether they're going to move their family here. So they need a place where they can stay in town while they make that decision, determine whether or not it's someplace that they're going to stay and they're going to move their families to. Met with everyone at the Chamber of Commerce, hotel motel owners. You know, we have a new police academy coming to town. They're going to be bringing in maybe 60 trainees throughout the summer and throughout the winter, and they'll need a place too. So this is the basement level. And down in the basement, there's currently a very large commercial kitchen, because remember, you know, they were serving 3 meals a day here at the nursing home. And we're not going to be serving 3 meals a day. But in the center is what you see is our common bathrooms that would be available. They're common just in the sense that they're private. You know, you go in there, you can shut the door behind you, you take a shower, you can brush your teeth, you can do whatever you need to do, and lock the door and feel safe in there. Also down on the ground floor, we have a fitness center. We're working with Gronk Fitness. I think a lot of people know Ron Godprowski. It's his family's business. They're going to help provide the equipment and design that fitness center for us. The laundry facility is something that's a big plus. We have designated 2 rooms on the ground floor for bunks. And that didn't come from us. That came from when we walked the young ladies from Hui around, and they told us what they could afford, which is not very much for housing. They said they would have no problem living, you know, 2 or 4 to a room if the rent was the right price. So we're going to experiment a little bit and have 2 of those bunk rooms. And if it doesn't work, then we just turn them back into regular rooms. So as you go upstairs to the first floor, out of the front facing Main Street, there'll be a little cafe. It's a cafe that'll be very similar to like Coffee O or Pie in the Sky. with some outdoor space and outdoor seating. I think it'd just be a great place to be able to sit and relax. There isn't any place like it on that part of Main Street, during the summer. Now, there's only one way you can get in and out of these buildings. Well, there's fire exits that you can go out. But if you live here, you have to go past the front desk, so we get to see everyone. And then it's security gate, security doors that in order to open, basically now they have such high tech, it's your fingerprint. So you can't give someone your fob or a key and that will get them in. So it's very, very tight security. I want to say something real quickly about management. So those buildings, so I've built about 1,000, built and renovated about 1,000 affordable housing units over my career, most of them in San Diego. And we manage all our projects. So we don't hire a third-party manager. We did for Legansett because that was a requirement that DHCD have. And the lady we hired is doing a great job. But we self-manage these. So this will have a full staff of a on-site manager, assistant manager, housekeepers, maintenance people. So we'll have somewhere probably between 8 and 12 staff members that are there, full-time, full-time. So also on the first floor, because the rooms are small, though they will all have their little kitchenettes with a microwave oven, under-counter refrigerator, and a 2-burner cooktop. There's also a commercial, communal kitchen towards the back of the building on the first floor. So that will be open 24 hours a day, and behind that, you'll see some vending machines. Now, these aren't your typical vending machines that dispense M&Ms and soda and stuff like that. These will have fresh salads and sandwiches in there. Maybe they're made by the cafe, but there are some companies that will provide that. There's also a little dining room there. Behind that, on the same floor, is a co-working space. So that allows people a place to congregate, both in the kitchen area and also the co-working space. So one of the keys is really having these type of amenities. So it's the amenities we have on the ground floor with the fitness center, the laundry facility, and then also the amenities that we have on this floor. And then again, in the center of the, like the center of the donut, is the common bathrooms. Again, there's handicapped accessible ones, there's regular ones there, and we have, I believe, 5 bathrooms for those rooms.
How many units?
That's just on that one floor. How many units are on the
floor?
On that floor, there, I believe, are 10 that don't have a bathroom. Yep.
May I ask how much more time you're going to require this evening?
I'm on the 3rd floor.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this
Board all right
gives,
with extending time?
yeah. Thank you. So all the rooms are fully furnished. So you don't need anything when you move in. Just bring your clothes. We don't want you to bring anything. So there's no changing out furniture or anything. TV's there, internet's there. Everything that you need is there. This just gives you an idea of the typical layout and the type of furniture. We work with a company called Resource Furniture. They are experts on furnishing these small little units. We also have a 1-bedroom ones in the studios. This just gives you another idea of how the units get laid out, the bunk rooms, how they're furnished. Again, this is all included in the rent. This just gives you another idea with the closets open. This is our little kitchenette with the cooktop, on the counter refrigerator. It won't be a glass one, it'll be a stainless steel one. And the one thing that we have is on the counter refrigerators that have 2 separate, like freezer and a refrigerator underneath it. We're going to be taking out all the existing mechanical equipment that's there right now that's fueled by natural gas and replacing it with 100% electric. We're trying to reach net zero by having all the solar panels up on the roof, so it'll be a very energy efficient building. Parking was a big issue. It's a very walkable location at a walkable score of 71. It's right on the bus line, the C-Line bus line. We work with a company called Envoy. They will provide us electric cars, the charging stations for them, they'll maintain the cars, and our residents will have an app that will allow them to rent these cars by the minute. And I figured out that you can actually rent a car and go up to Boston and back cheaper than taking the Peter Pan bus.
Did you say by the minute?
Yes, by the minute. It depends on what car you want. If you want the Chevy Volt, it's like 24 cents a minute. If you want a Tesla, it's like 42. So I think that we'll probably have more Chevy Volts there than we will have Teslas. But it's just available to our residents, that's all. We talked about bikes, electric bikes and regular bikes that will be there. We'll have storage for 30 bikes. And then we'll also have this is a new electric Volkswagen van, passenger van, that seats 8 people. So if someone needs to get down to Woods Hole for work, we'll shuttle them down there, no cost. All the only thing they need to do is give a tip to the driver. So I think we're trying to incorporate a lot of different things into this project. I think makes sense. I think economically makes sense, environmentally it makes sense. I just want to bring up something that's in our local comprehensive plan, which was adopted by our town meeting. What we're doing is actually mentioned in this plan. So this is sort of the Bible in our plan over the next 50 years. So one thing that it says is that we should strengthen and support innovative housing concepts, which I think this is innovative housing concepts, such as courtyard living, micro-housing. That's what this is called. It has a lot of different names. In the old days, it was called SRO, single room occupancy. Now it's called a micro-unit. It's been called efficiency units. So it's even mentioned in the housing element of our comprehensive plan. It also says that mixed-use development and adaptive reuse should be encouraged to promote smaller, more versatile units. So I think that what we're proposing fits very well into the housing element of our comprehensive plan. It says that Falmouth will allow for greater infill residential density. I think Mr. Cod did that, and I think what we're proposing accomplishes that. Falmouth will allow and encourage the market to create multiple housing opportunities that allow for more choices. Obviously, I don't think we have anything quite like this in town right now. We did back in the days, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And that Falmouth will accept responsibility for providing housing for people at all stages of life and levels of income. I mean, this type of housing, actually, many seniors like to live in it too, because it's very affordable for them, and they like being around young people. And this was all voted and approved at town meeting back in 2015. So one of the problems is that we had these policies, and we have these policies. I know Jim Fox is here, and he's worked on the planning board and has done a great job, but we haven't gone far enough to implement these into our zoning bylaw. That's why we're here tonight, really, because of how difficult it's been to permit this project. It's a project that I hear everyone say it's great, we need it, it's a great location. It's on the sewer, it actually uses less sewer than the nursing home does. It's on public transportation. You can walk everywhere, but it's been a very difficult project to permit because we don't have the bylaws right now. Mr. Cod's a great help. If it wasn't for Mr. Ament, I wouldn't have ever been able to figure out, because we started off just committing this as just commercial accommodations. That's all it was going to be. And then I went to how to provide any affordable housing. Well, that's what I do for a living, is provide affordable housing. So by going the Mr. Cod route, I think we came up with a very creative way in order to permit this project. And I hope you feel the same, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Board questions, start with you, Jerry.
No questions at this time?
No, thank you, Mr. Glassman, for the presentation.
Just one comment. And as you mentioned, you had 10 units in North Falmouth, 100 applicants, 80 potential or 80 qualified applicants. I would submit that you have the same number of people that would be eager to stay in a place like this. I just question the need for the commercial. And where are the commercial units going to be? Are they going to be segregated from the rest of the building?
No,
And,
there won't be, yeah. But there won't be any segregation. There'll, you know, the units are dispersed throughout the building. Because of the Mr. Cod regulation, the studios and one-bedrooms are designated as residential and meet their requirements, and there's a certain cap on density on Mr. Cod, so that's the maximum number of units we can have under the Mr. Cod density, and then the commercial accommodation gives us the rest of the units.
Mr. Galasso has described what we are presenting and what we've come up with as creative. I appreciate that. I'd call it tricky. It requires some understanding of how are we going to redevelop this building under our zoning bylaw. And fortunately, the Mr. Cod bylaw is the avenue to do it. Presented as entirely affordable commercial accommodations, the project doesn't work because Mr. Galasso needs to get financing for affordable housing, and you can't finance commercial accommodations as affordable housing. We need housing. And so this project shows 26 units that would be designated as housing. And in order to qualify as Mr. Cod housing, the units have to be rented for a year. So these are people's dwellings. These are for residents of the town. That's the maximum number we can have because of the density limitation at 20 units per acre. 20 apartments doesn't fill this building. The project cannot be done unless we have a use for the whole building. So with the Mr. Cod bylaw allowing mixed use, whether with your special permit or not, commercial accommodations is the rest of the property. So there's 71 units, but 26 are to be residential, rented for no less than a year, because that's the requirement under Mr. Cod. It's a requirement for being on the subsidized housing list of the town. The other 45 units are the smaller units, although the 26 units are by no means large. And those we're going to have permitted, with your help, as commercial accommodation units. But under the section of the definition of commercial accommodations that refers to boarding houses that can be rented, the number is in the bylaw, for 30 days. See, we have a problem. If commercial accommodations, year-long rentals are not commercial accommodations. Commercial accommodations under our bylaws defined as rental to transients. Rental to transients. So the idea is that these smaller units would be rented for 30-day periods as allowed under the bylaw, and they would be suitable for rental to short-term occupants, the J1 students who are here for just a few months, a couple of months in the summer, visiting students at the scientific institutions and the like. We're saying that they will not be able to be rented for less than 30 days. Now, you can renew it. It's on a month-to-month basis. 30-day rentals. Not weekend rentals. Not overnight, not by the week. So these are not commercial accommodations. I don't want you to think of this as a motel or hotel of that nature. We are creating places to be occupied by the people who need short-term rentals, particularly in summer, but these are we have restaurants which aren't opening as much they would like to open because they cannot find people, because the people can't find a place to live. And so that's what this is all about. Together, all 71 units we can call workforce housing. But we are getting it permitted by having Mr. Cod mixed use with a portion of it being year-long rentals approved by the state on the town's list. A minimum of 25% affordable. The very nature of the housing is that they will be what we would call affordable. And it's quite likely, though we cannot know yet, that the financing will allow more of the units to be permanently dedicated and put on the list, more than 25%. It's too early to know how high that number can go. But I wanted you to understand what we're trying to do and how it's going to work. And it works under the bylaw. It absolutely works. You might have questions just about what I've said, so if you do, I'll try to answer. And the planning board has, the planning board has agreed to this.
Question, Suzanne?
I have two things. I omitted to read a letter from the Economic Development, if I can take the time to do that.
Is it in support?
It is in support,
I
but
think
they
that'll be
asked to
sufficient.
read
Okay,
into
that's
the
fine.
record, if I may. Did I hear someone? I thought the person might have been here.
They are here.
They are here. I'm reading a letter. The Falmouth Economic Development and Industrial Corporation strongly supports the application made by 545 Main Street LLC to the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals to renovate the vacant former Royal Nursing Home in downtown Falmouth for much-needed affordable workhouse housing and for year-round and seasonal workers. Towns on Cape Cod face a severe housing shortage, especially for our low and moderate income employees. Businesses suffer because they're not able to attract or maintain an adequate number of employees to fully staff their operations. In addition, the school, police, and fire departments and our hospital are understaffed because it's difficult for them to attract employees who can find any type of housing. Part of the EDIC's mission is to support local businesses by advocating for increased investment in our community. 545 Main will take a long-standing vacant building centrally located on our main street in downtown Falmouth, connected to the municipal sewer system and located on Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority Sea Line route, and renovate it into a productive workforce housing asset. We think this project, as presented by Mr. Galassa, will be an important addition to the housing stock in our community and importantly serve the needs of our critical downtown business. The Falmouth EDIC supports the repurposing of this important historic building into workforce housing as detailed in the plans and related documents submitted to the ZBA by 545 Main. And I also have 8 other letters in support.
It's 9:30.
Motion to continue till
10:15.
10 o'clock? 10:15?
Second.
Is
10:15.
there a
The
second?
game starts at 10.
Yeah, I understand, but we've got another hearing.
Got another hearing.
Comment, so.
Second.
Only kidding.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 10:15.
I'm all set with that, so I just wanted to get that.
No, it's a very interesting project. Hats off to the applicant and trying to tick off as many boxes as possible. It's really neat. It's this kind of a Vulcan mind melt to try and make it all come out in a positive fashion. My only hope here is that we're following the bylaws that the town has approved. So as long as we can follow through with that, it's should be a good outcome in the end.
Tony?
Have you spoken with Mass Housing about this yet? And has Mass Housing been out to look at the site?
This isn't a 40B. but
It's
yes,
not a 40B.
This is not a 40B. No, this is only,
Only under Mr. Cod.
it's only under Mr. Cod,
All right,
but
so-
I talk to Mass Housing all the time. I was up there because, to make this project work economically, I need money from the state. And this project is different. They haven't seen anything like this. They want it, but it's going to require some changes.
Well.
And so we're getting there with them, and we want to get as many of the units as possible on the state affordable housing list too. Right now, we'd only get the Mr. Cod units on there, the 26.
Well, just as one member, I'd like to know why this can't be done, because I think it's brilliant. I've never seen, all the development I've done through the years, I've never seen anything like this. And I think it's, I'd just like to know why it can't be done. That's what I want to hear.
They don't like the smaller units because I don't have an oven in them. Because I have a microwave and a cooktop, and I've got a commercial kitchen down the hall. Without that.
So we have a code issue, a building code issue.
It's a guideline, it's not a code. It's a guideline written in 2014, before we started building these type of micro units and so on. So we got to get them to look at their guideline and flex a little bit. And I'll say they like this project, they like what we're doing with it. It hits a lot of things that the governor wants to do. And the governor's been to many of my openings. She was at that one at that project in New Bedford, so she's very familiar with what we're trying to do here. All our state representatives support the project. So I think we'll get there, we're just not there yet.
I just think you're going to have a building code issue.
I'm sure we'll have many. Anytime we
Oh, yeah.
renovate a building, there's a lot. And we intend on, depending upon how historic comes out, we intend on basically demolishing pretty much most of the inside of the building and then rebuilding it. Yeah, that's what I have found out from renovating 15 buildings in New Bedford. The best way to do it is really bring it down to the studs and build it back up.
Thank you.
I think this is a great project, obviously filling a need. My question is in terms of, to you, Mr. Ahmed, are you going to obtain a license, essentially as a rooming house? I think you might be able to get around of any certain landlord-tenant issues by obtaining that license in and of itself with the commercial accommodations. Do you know
Well,
what plan
the
is?
commercial accommodations, to the extent licensing applies, and different licensing applies to different type of commercial accommodations, will have to fit in there. But in actual, I mean, some people will have a 30-day lease. The language in the planning board decision, and they've really gone into a lot of detail, thinking that it could be that theirs is the only decision, but there's a lot of detail in there. We will be allowed, if someone's going to stay for 6 weeks, they don't have to rent it for a second 30. The last rental period can be for less than 30 days, but no less than 30 days. There'll be people there who are there under a year-long lease, and there'll be people who are there under a 30-day lease, and they might be there for 2 or 3 months, just like a boarder might be in a boarding house as commercial accommodations. Yes, it's tricky but don't think of it as the kind of commercial accommodations as a it's not going to be like a motel. It's going to be people who may be there for a summer. And so for permitting it, we have commercial accommodation units, we have affordable housing as part of the dwelling units. But the combination, we think, can be financed. The numbers get us to where the project can work.
Scott, you have a question?
In listening to the presentation, it appears that there's a lot of moving parts here to this project. So my question is, if this board grants you the special permit or gets you an affirmative decision, how close are you to starting it? Or do you have a lot of more regulatory hurdles to go through?
Mr. Galasso can answer that better than I can.
It will take us a good part of next year to get all the plans and all the financing together. And then it will take us another 12 months to do the building. So if we're fortunate and we get the funding that we need by the middle of next year, then we'll start it shortly after that, and it'll be the middle of 25. That's,
You open the doors.
yeah. And we looked at this project as the way to quickly provide more affordable housing. And, we've got a pretty good sturdy building there, but it was built, in the 60s and 70s, so all the codes have changed and stuff like that. So that would be probably the best schedule that I could give you at this time.
Thank you.
Additional board questions? Public comment? Oh, Mr. Fenner.
What are the rents the average rents that you intend to charge?
So one thing that we wanted to do is serve people who make about $20, $25 an hour. So the rents for those people, because you got to, most of the time you say 30% of your income goes towards rent, but because all the utilities are included and everything, we can go a little bit higher than that. And let me just find my chart that I put together. We're looking at, some of the units at about $1,500 a month, all-inclusive. And then for the two-bedroom, for the one-bedroom, market rate one would be somewhere around 25 a month, but we'll have units that'll be lower than that too. So, yeah.
There's nothing cheap anymore, obviously, and no.
We're gonna try to be as cheap as possible, and it all depends upon how much finance I'm able to get put together from the town, from the state. That will help lower the rents too.
I
But
don't.
we really wanted to hit the people who work at Stop and Shop, for instance, and the people who work at the markets and work in the restaurants and everything. So if those folks are making, dishwashers now make $20, $25 an hour, that's the market that we want to go after. We got to make the units affordable to them.
I don't dispute the great need for this, and, we're just scratching the surface. It'll be a while before this decision is made, but I have to say that the major concern I have with this now is parking. And it's not just the parking itself in there with your 50 to 59 spaces and 71 units. And the difficulty limiting at least some of the vehicle traffic with the commercial units. I'm also concerned the overflow in the surrounding streets, businesses, and such. We really have an unaddressed need for parking in this town. And that, I guess, would be one of my 2 or 3 major concerns with this. But we're just scratching the surface.
Unless we want people to start living in their cars, we need the housing.
They already are.
So we need that balance.
I understand.
You couldn't have a better place than on Main Street to be able to serve the people who live at this type of facility. So I understand your concern. It's definitely a concern in some of the other places that might be building affordable housing, but I think in downtown, where we have public transportation and people can walk, there is something like 17 restaurants on Main Street, and they probably employ close to 800 employees.
800 or 1,000 people, probably.
Yeah,
I have
so,
no-
and if you notice during the summer, you see a lot of those people riding their bicycles, and you go into Dunkin' Donuts and go through the drive-through window, and there they are working in there. So those folks know how to get around without having a car. And we gotta stop everyone having a single car. That's why we got Uber, that's why we have these car sharing, that's why we have bicycles and stuff. So I understand the concern, I think we've addressed it creatively here, and I hope that you feel the same way.
As you probably know, we did submit a traffic assessment. I know you have your own opinion about these things, but we have a professional opinion that with affordable housing, with the nature of this housing, with the number of units that would be occupied by J1 students who are coming to the United States, who almost none of whom will have cars. These are almost all single occupancy units. There's going to be no more traffic than the nursing home had, and it's less traffic than any variety of uses which would be allowed by right on Main Street on a 1.7 acre parcel. Just compare it to a single large restaurant. This is not a lot of traffic.
But J1 people, realistically, aren't going to be occupying this building year-round. So, it is a concern, and
No, but Stu,
take
but-
directly across the street. You have how many businesses in that thing, and how many spaces do they have?
If we could provide more spaces on site, we would. The number of spaces has been reduced because of the fire department requests. I thought we could fit a few more, but we have what we have. When you make your decision under a special permit, the determination, the criteria is whether the detriments of the project outweigh the benefits. And possibly there could be a traffic problem. We don't think so. The professionals don't think so. But the benefits of this project so far outweigh that concern, given where, what we do have, that it should not, I mean, the standard isn't perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. But this project more than meets the standard of being in harmony with the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw and the possible detriments, which are speculative, do not exceed the very clear benefits. So I hope that's where you would come down on that.
Well, I'm not by any means confusing the difference between traffic and parking. Again, my concern is parking. I don't think the traffic is going to be a major issue. What anybody consider what Main Street is like anyhow.
Thank you.
Public comment. Sir, come on up.
Good evening. Sorry, it's been a long night for all of us, and I know you're exhausted, so I will try to. My name's Maureen Lipscoon-Maker. I am an owner of Pondview, one of the abutters across the street. I rent that unit out, also the head trustee of the condo association, and I also am representing the abutters that are behind the property that have asked me to include theirs. We are represented by Attorney Edward Kirk. He's not able to be here for reasons that are personal to him. So I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an official, but I'm going to do what we can do to let you know some of our concerns. We've been through the whole planning board process, and like I said, I'm a landlord. I have always rented my unit. I have other people here that are actual owners. It's about a 50-50 at Pondview condominium. We require that all of them be year-round. I've always rented my unit below going rate. I've had my tenants there forever, so I'm very sympathetic to all of the needs. So this is difficult to come up here. But the problem is throughout all of this is that, without being disrespectful to Attorney Ament, we always keep hearing that it's not perfect and there's all these different things and there's red flags that keep coming out that we don't get answers to. So our position is that we agree with the building commissioner's decision. And also of issue per the planning board letter, it stated that the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly known as the Department of Housing and Community Development, has indicated to the applicant that in order for the 26 residential dwelling units having one-year lease terms to be included on the town's SHI, they would need to be separated from the 30-day rental term units as its own development through a separate ownership arrangement. Throughout the planning board, even Attorney Ament said at first that that might provide difficulty, that he may not be Mr. Glasso may not get financing. So we had questions. They had attempted to meet with us, and we still didn't get definite on that. It was stated at the planning board meeting through the developer's lawyer, Bob Ament, that if this requirement was enforced, that it would affect Mr. Galasso's ability to secure financing, partners, and developers. Is this still the case? Has this separate ownership been established? Who are the developers and owners, including the separate entity? We never got, conclusion as did that occur. What are the developers' intentions? We haven't had conclusive on that. Do they intend to sell the property? Are they guaranteeing that they will own the property for at least 10 years? Is it going to be built and then sold? He did talk quite a bit, which was reassuring. About one of the things we had was, what are the management arrangements in place? Will it be an in-house management team? I appreciate him saying that, working directly for the developers. Or will the management be sourced out? Will the management be on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? I appreciate that he said that. What's a little more concerning is what monitoring, compliance, and safety protocols will be in place, as well as ongoing supervision for compliance, safety, and especially parking. Because we have heard quite a bit about the concept of the J1 students and that a lot of these people may not have cars. But I'll get to my final thing, which is the parking issues. The numbers don't add up. And so who's going to ensure that they are not having cars? I mean, I know Attorney Ament, and I'm not an attorney, had said something about that there was a discriminatory process that was legal, that they could insist that some of the unit people could not have cars. But how is that all going to work, and how are they going to manage and look at that? The plan submitted to the planning board stated that there would be 2 bunk rooms and 21 single rooms without bathrooms, all sharing a central bathroom space. Yet, when we met with the developers, it was stated by one of the developers that this was in the process of changing and that all the rooms would have their own separate bathroom. Therefore, there is a change from what the original plan that was approved by the planning board was. And as the planning board wrote in the letter that they gave to us, I'll quote, "The plan shall be constructed as approved. Any changes shall be reviewed by the planning board to determine if a modification of this decision is necessary. Pursuant to 240-2.1 of the zoning bylaw, no permit for occupancy of the new construction shall be issued until the planning board is satisfied that the condition of this approval." So we were a little confused again with this gray area. If they are now, we sat through all the planning board, it was no bathrooms in those, and then when they met with us very recently, they said they're going to change that. So does that now mean they need to go back to the planning board? The project is presented as affordable housing under Mr. Cod, but in fact, 45 units are really likened to a rooming house, as you said, a motel, a boarding house, and their use is not covered by permit from the planning board under Mr. Cod. Therefore, these 45 commercial units, which includes the restaurant and the, whatever you want to call it, motel, are in a business development district, and this leads to a different scenario altogether. We have questions, what is really going on here, affordable housing or something much more different? Restaurant and motel, rooming house, type workforce, housing under the auspice of affordable housing, and riding the backs of COD. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we've just had so many different things said to us. This project is not serving the housing needs of families, single-parent families, and young working adults, as less than half of these units provide for permanent housing that is needed, as the purpose of the bylaw was to increase affordable housing, not for use of restaurant and motel, but for families. With regards to the restaurant, will it eventually want a liquor license, change its hours of operations, want entertainment? What assurances are in place, as this will change the whole environment of what is intended and needed? The parking and traffic will be much different with this project than it was serving as a nursing home. In addition to the concerns that I'm going to say as my final, parking and traffic was much different with the nursing home. The nursing home residents did not have their own cars, requiring parking. I'm a nurse. I've been at that facility many times. They were not coming and going. The parking and traffic was short-term for staff and resident visitors. How realistic and effective will the rideshare program really be? And who will be monitoring this in compliance as to how many will actually obtain cars and park? How realistic is the electric bike program? How does this work in inclement weather, winter? As I said, I'm an owner of the condominium unit in Pondview. The condo association bylaws say all units need to be year-round. I've always rented my unit below market. I am sympathetic to the needs of the community. There is a real need for year-round affordable housing, but this project only has 26 year-round units instead, the restaurant and commercial. Also, the planning board, Mr. Ament said something, the commercial accommodation units will be rented for a period of 30 days. He said that it's always a 30-day. But if you look closely, unless I'm wrong, at the letter that the planning board sent to all of us, it says, underneath of that, and if a 30-day rental is renewed or extended, it may be less than 30 days. So when I asked them that, they couldn't give us a definitive answer. So it isn't 30 days, 30 days. This clause in the letter that the planning board gave to us, does that mean it could be 1 day, 2 days? It's kind of a different picture. We feel this is not the best use of space in light of the actual needs of the community. And with all the questions and the fact that this has never been, again, we were part of that meeting where Ed had talked about the town planner, that the state was a little unsure with this. Everyone, and I include, there's so many great parts of this, but that Even the state is saying, we're not real sure about this. So, in closing, I wanted to read exactly, because I know Attorney Kirk has done this extensively, and I know that you were talking about the parking issues. Again, I'm not the lawyer representing us, so I apologize, but this is kind of spelled out. The planning board allowed a reduction of 24 parking spaces from the 26 parking spaces required for the 26 residential units. That means there must be 2 spaces on site devoted to the residential units. The 24-seat restaurant requires 12 parking spaces. The Zoning Board of Appeals application in the Planning Board special permit states that there are 45 commercial accommodated units. The bylaw requires 1 1/10 space per unit. That would require 49 spaces for 45 units. Therefore, if you take the 49 of the commercial accommodated units, the 12 of the restaurant parking, and the 2 from the reduction, 63 parking spaces are needed. The parking plan that they submitted says 53 spaces are shown and provided. The parking is already short by 10 spaces. In addition, 240-14.11 requires that, quote, parking shall be located in the same zoning district allowing the activity it serves. The prior planning board correspondence and diagram states that there are approximately 17 parking spaces located in residential district and on the southerly end of the lot, which is affecting the abutters, where commercial accommodation and restaurants are not allowed. That would further reduce the amount of lawful parking available from 53 spaces to 36 spaces, where 63 would be required even after the planning board reduction, making the parking now short by 27 spaces. The parking out back next to the residential district is not protected, as they had said, as pre-existing non-conforming use. Because if the non-conforming use, is what I'm told, is not used for 2 years, that protection is lost. The nursing home has been closed for at least 2 years. Therefore, the non-conforming protection has been lost through non-use. Thus, any parking out back can't be closer than 20 feet from the residential property line. A special permit would be required to restore and change the use from a nursing home to a commercial accommodation and restaurant. And in closing, with the advent and popularity of short-term rental companies, we've already seen a huge chunk of our housing stock transformed from year-round residents to weekly and nightly rentals. Without question, this has changed the community and made it significantly harder for families and young mothers and single mothers to find and afford homes. This property presents an important opportunity for the community, a lot of great things, but the current proposal seems to only exacerbate the other problem of housing for family. So we're kind of thinking this is effectively dorm living for adults disguised as an affordable housing project. This is not yet a proven concept in our community, especially on such a scale. Do we really want to make the gamble on our main street? Should this not be something that is more evenly distributed throughout our town to mitigate potential strain on our already overtaxed infrastructure and roadways downtown? If this were to be approved, what will the developer's responsibility be to ensure that the occupants of the building are in fact local and seasonal workers contributing to the town's workforce? How will we as abutters be assured that these month-to-month tenancies will in fact strengthen the local community and not detract from it? More specifically, what are the ongoing legal requirements for occupancy of this project after the developer has built and potentially sold the property? How does the town plan to enforce such legal requirements? And what penalties or consequences will exist if the owner-developer does not abide by the requirements? And how will they be taxed? We would like to ensure that this project is not using an affordable housing label to evade the hoteling tax usually levied on property owners who operate short-term rentals. So I'm sorry to go on, it's a long night. There's just so much good in it, but there's so many other questions. And I think that that really needs to be looked at before, like you said, taking on such a, and I don't doubt that Mr. Glasser has good intentions, but there's a lot of things that continually are not addressed, and according to the parking is number one, according to Attorney Ken Kirk. And then I know Bill and some of the other owners, and we can let them speak.
Mr. Chair, I think given the lateness of the night, it's clearly up to the board. I just don't know, even if you're able to vote on this tonight.
This is gonna be a
you have
continuation.
time
There's
to-
no doubt about that.
To adequately get to findings and conditions. And I know you have a lot of people who are.
Well, I think just one more, is my understanding from our group, is gonna just talk, and that's it.
Do you have any additional comments, or are this going to be concerns about?
My name is, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Edis. I'm also a native here since 1962. I am a direct abutter from the nursing home. I've been in my location that I own since 2007. I've been in that place, and I see the traffic congestion there, and I don't know, and I don't see how, with a 30-unit building they're putting on Scranton Ave. I understand the old Phase building just got approved for low-income housing. And now this building being that, the traffic is bumper to bumper. I said it to the planning board, I will invite everyone, come sit in my office for a day. Right there's Main Street, I see the bumper to bumper traffic. There's no way they're gonna be able to accommodate this, but we have a police department that's falling apart. That would be a great place to switch spots, put the police department over there and maybe the low-income housing. That would be a great location for Mr. Glacio to do this project. It's not a good place for this. It's not a great location. And the traffic it's horrendous for me to get in and out of there, my employees, my customers. It's a strain. You've got the gas stations on both sides of me. You got Walgreens, you have Dunkin' Donuts, you have tractor trailers in and out of there tying up the road. You have low-income housing behind Walgreens as it is, also behind Dunkin' Donuts, across the street from Dunkin' Donuts. I'm all for low-income housing, for sure. We definitely need it. 1,500, 2,500, I don't think that's low income. So you're gonna end up with 2 or 3 people in these units. You don't have the parking, and now it's gonna be even more congestion. And I don't know how they're gonna be able to afford that and to rent these cars. It just doesn't add up mathematically. It's common sense. Thank you.
We're looking at a continuation. We have a date?
So I think we'd already picked December 14th, so I would just recommend that we wrap it all in on that date.
Motion to continue to the 14th.
Motion second. Mr. Finneran, any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Does the attorney have to, oh, he already agreed to the date.
Yeah.
14th, okay.
I haven't agreed with any.
Oh, that's what I thought.
And I'm upset that people who have come to speak about this aren't opportunity to speak.
Yeah, could we, Mr. Chair? Now that he's, I think the special permit was agreed to be continued, but I thought, well, he's here.
Has been continued.
Yeah.
Both have been continued.
All right, I thought we needed his approval.
We got another hearing.
Okay.
Go.
They've both been
Recess
continued.
for
Okay.
1 minute.
Sure. Brief recess.
Yes.
We gotta get control.
Supplying it. Let's do it. Come on, boys.
But the information is still valid.
I got bees to watch at 10:30 if I stay up.
You'll be here at 10:30.
I'm gonna continue in class in Gailey's tomorrow morning. Yeah, I was there this morning, I got back this morning.
The final hearing we have on our new hearings this evening is 08323 Henderson, 9 Highview Drive, East Falmouth, requesting a special permit to remove the existing deck and construct a screen porch addition near the rear of the non-conforming dwelling. It's a preliminary matter. I'll note that the property was not staked when I did a drive-by with other board members who encountered the same issue.
No stake.
Yep. I called the zoning board yesterday. You know when you wake up at 2 in the morning, gasping, realizing something, you missed something? I had that yesterday, but I was awake when it happened. So yesterday, it dawned on me that this is an engineer that we haven't really worked with, and I didn't send out, I typically send out a reminder saying, here's the staking requirements. So as soon as I realized, I called Noreen yesterday and spoke with Ashley, and I spoke with Noreen this morning. I was debating simply submitting a request for a continuation. I thought, in fairness to my client, I'd at least come before you tonight. There's a few ways this could proceed, depending on what the board wants to do, and understanding that it's 10:05 at night. So, if the board insists, I would request a continuation now.
No.
I could present, and we could continue, knowing that we'll be staking in the next few days. Or we could just proceed as normal. So, my preference would be to at least present. We can continue for the purpose of staking, leave it open if there's any additional questions. It's a fairly simple project. And, I called my client and I said I made a mistake. I didn't send out the reminder. I typically do. I didn't. I think that, the board could hear this, and it should not impact the board's decision, because it is, again, a relatively minor project relative to the property.
Those are our things to decide. I mean, and they're relatively simple instructions. And the stake that was there, that they obviously turned it, well, perhaps not, said BSS design on it.
It wasn't BSS,
No, well, there's a stake with a, pink ribbon around it, and it says BSS design. I should have taken a picture, but
BSS
I'm not inclined to hear this, and I don't think any of us else are. We've been working on this to get these things staked properly for a long time, and it's simple in the instructions, and it's not our mistake.
No, it's not. And I'm telling you, Mr. Finneran, I'm admitting that it's my mistake, because I did not send the notice to the engineer, because it's not an engineer we typically work with. So, they staked the building, and they didn't stake the lot lines. And again, as soon as I realized that was brought to the zoning office's attention, and I would request, if the board is willing, that we present. It shouldn't take more than a few moments to do so, because again, it is a relatively straightforward project. But if the board insists, then I would certainly request a continuation. So I'm looking for direction from the board.
How would the board like to take this up, or do you want a continuation?
We voted to stay till 10:15. We have more to go. It's not fair to let the people who, I have no intention of taking this up. You can-
I would find a presentation by Mr. Clower a lot more helpful if I had been out there and seen the staking.
Jerry?
I agree.
I agree.
I mean, it's a fairly straightforward project, but again, we've all decided to have the staking done as a prerequisite, and I think we can move fairly quickly when we all get
Understood.
together.
I had spoken to Noreen. Obviously, we can't have it done for next week, because today would have been the day to do so. I think the November 2nd meeting was fairly light, and again, this is a relatively small project, so that's what I'd request for a hearing date.
I think we can squeeze that in, for sure. Is there a motion?
Motion to continue to the 2nd of November.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll give that to Scott.
Scott
All
can
those in
have it.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all very much.
We need to elect two.
Appreciate your time. Tonight is not a night going on my highlight reel, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
We have open meeting.
Want to announce to these people what's going on? I'm not sure they understood.
So that concludes all of our hearings. The hearing concerning 545 Main has been continued to 12:14 along with the appeal. Last up on our agenda this evening are open meeting issues. We are tabling the minutes of October the 5th. We have a request for insubstantial change of comprehensive permit number 3507 Forest Cove Condominium, 637 Gifford Street, with a vote anticipated. Maureen, you want to just bring everyone up to speed?
Before we start, I have a disclosure.
Oh, sure.
I'm a trustee of a property that abuts this property. I also, as you know, lived across the street, and the first person I met in this town lives up the street. I don't think that it affects my ability to make a decision. If anything, it improves it, because I have great familiarity with the street. And, I don't see any reason to recuse myself.
Did you file the disclosure form with the selectmen?
No,
You
but
filed it
it's
late?
not a hearing. So is that not?
It is a vote, though.
It's a matter.
Yeah, you
Just
just
file-
gotta
file
go
a
fill it
disclosure.
out.
Yeah, whatever, I'll file, but I mean, I don't see any reason to recuse myself.
But you're gonna file it, right?
Yeah.
By tomorrow or something?
Wow, when did you file yours? 3 years ago?
No, I
You've been
can't-
working on
I-
it ever since.
no.
What do we have, Noreen?
Okay, so you have a comprehensive permit that was issued in 2007 for a development. The development's fully built out. There was conversation at the time that this was permitted about a potential gate going in. The gate did not wind up in the decision. The complex was built without the gate. They are now asking for permission to install a gate.
Any discussion?
So I think there are some folks here that, you know, perhaps can answer some
There are, but,
questions.
Jen, I went out and I took a look at this property. We talked about the intersection of Percival Road and Trotting Park Road, and I think the intersection of Mock Turtle Road and Trotting Park Road is worse than the one we've been talking about for months. I don't think this is an insubstantial change. I think this is a security issue and a safety issue, and I would urge that we make a finding that it's, should be subject to a public hearing.
Alrighty now.
That's a bad idea. I would agree with Attorney Duffy.
We generally have public comment on insubstantial change requests. It's not a full hearing, so no.
It's an open meeting.
It's open meeting, it's not a public
If
hearing.
it's insubstantial, we have a
It's just a
public
board.
meeting. If we have a hearing, it's got to be noticed.
No, my question is, we generally don't take public comment
Oh,
on
right.
a,
No, at a,
it's only in a full hearing.
so only a hearing, right,
Notice.
so it's in the record, okay.
I think it, again, I think that it warrants a full hearing. I mean, and I agree with what Frank said. It's more dangerous because that's on the straightaway part of that road. And again,
Whip.
my experience is excessive speed
Speedy, yep.
and danger of people backing. I just think it's worth a hearing, and I think they deserve a hearing, so they all can be heard.
Oh, that, maybe they have some time to chat about what they'd like to do to move forward.
In the interim,
to
I think
help.
that
Yeah.
might be
That would be nice, too.
as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
def-
think it would be in everyone's interest that we have a hearing on this matter.
So we'll need a motion to deny the insubstantial change and mark this for full hearing then.
I'll
So
make a
moved.
motion.
I'll second Frank's moves, you know, he's the shaker on this one.
It has by statute, by the regulation, has to be within 30 days.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The hearing has to start within 30 days.
That's for a new comprehensive permit filed.
No, it's for a, but if we make a finding that a hearing is necessary.
Right, so, but we can, yeah,
Yeah.
we can notice and mail, but, I guess the question is, so 30 days is gonna put you at Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that's a
And
problem.
you don't meet on Thanksgiving?
No, we're not, but I just point that out, because
So-
They don't count either, do
the
they?
coincidence is a problem. The way I read the regulation, the hearing has to start within 30 days of the decision that it is a public hearing.
Or you can continue this, notice and mail. And then,
It's a public hearing, we can't open it tonight because we haven't noticed it.
No, I
So we
think
can't
she's saying we
continue
can,
So we can't continue it.
But can't continue what we have here?
Yeah, well,
I mean, an
Maybe-
agenda item?
Maybe prior to the vote, you continue it, you notice it, and then you vote that it's not insubstantial, and you take it up as a noticed hearing.
I think we need a legal
You're not gonna make
opinion.
it the 30 days.
Does does the group Forest Cove condominium have to put in an application for us to have a hearing?
no,
No, we
the
determine
decision
it.
of the chairman
Yeah.
triggers it.
Okay.
And the furthest possible would give them the most time to communicate amongst themselves.
So
Perhaps
30
even
days
come to-
is Thanksgiving's, right?
So your suggestion is tabling the vote
Oh, that's a good.
to the next meeting, at which point we take it up, which would get us beyond Thanksgiving? Is that?
That's clever.
Sorry, folks.
I would just table it to the date that you're going to hear it, and we'll notice it.
As a hearing?
But if we table it, can't we get beyond the Thanksgiving and?
We table it,
kinda
we
like
can't make a
sneaky
decision.
Maneuver?
That it's, we're gonna table our decision.
We're just not taking the vote up tonight.
Right.
And then we'll vote for a hearing next time. And it'll get us past Thanksgiving? Sounds clever to me.
So what are you gonna do, continue it to November? That's still not gonna get you there.
Right now, there's a motion and a second on the table to find it, to deny an incident.
I would withdraw the motion.
All right, motion is now withdrawn.
And motion to continue
Motion to continue to when?
the next meeting.
10:26? Is there
Yeah.
a second on that?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Give that to Ms. Murphy. Discussion on the motion?
That's-
Can we do that?
Hold on.
Wait a minute, that's still not gonna get you there because you don't have agenda space.
Do you have a later date in mind?
How long is this?
You can't do the 26th.
Can't start at 6?
Yeah, let's
December-
come early.
you
Can't
could
notice
do-
it either.
Right.
You could do December 7th.
I think we're gonna have to start doing all our meetings at 6, and we might as well start it now.
Maybe 4.
Bring that up in board discussion in a second.
All right,
Let's get this
so
one off and then
Yeah.
discuss.
November 7, you wanna
November
table
7th?
it and continue it to
No,
then, and
December.
we'll-
December 7th?
Yeah.
I'd rather come early on the 26th.
Everybody's nodding yes, December 7th?
Are they falling asleep?
December 7th?
December 7th?
Yeah.
You got the date? Who's making the motion?
Mark did.
I did.
Who's second? Second is Suzanne. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 12-7.
This would have been a great idea at 6:30.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Yeah. Did you make a note?
Oh,
Talk to one another.
For another hearing.
Board discussion.
Start the next meeting at 6, is that what we're saying?
If it's not the next one, it's every one after that, I think,
Yeah.
You propose a start time for some of these other agendas?
till the Red
at 6.
Sox start. I think that's about how it's gonna work out.
You can't notice the 26th meeting, actually, can't, you know, it's where, I think beyond the 26th, we need to start meeting at 6.
Is that okay?
She won't even know what time it is anyway. She's in another country. When you go away, it's like, what?
Okay, so
So starting 6.
starting
Way
when?
after that.
We're still on, right?
Yeah, well, we're in session. We are being recorded.
yeah, I was just picking.
Okay. So, hold on.
Still in
hold on,
session, sir.
Hold on,
Thank you.
hold on.
Fox.
Let us-
Incorrect statement made, we believe.
Just let us finish one piece of business, please.
Yeah, so your next meeting, did we already schedule it for 6 or 6:30 for the
No, I-
review of the decision?
No, I think we're still 6:30 on the 26th.
All right.
And after
So,
that, that's my chair.
thinking about starting that one earlier, or no?
Use it for my
That's what I
tongue.
said, but
Start at 6 instead of-
Yeah, let's just go for that.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right,
So starting on
next week.
the 26th, we're going to start at 6. No.
So next
Oh,
week.
wait a minute,
It's
we
just one.
We announced the continuation to vote the hearing, so we can't, because I think we told them 6:30. Yeah, so.
Second.
Next week will have to be 6:30.
But after that,
Oh,
So starting on the 2nd, we go to 6.
you've already noticed it anyway, so you can't.
wait a minute.
After
Ashley?
that, we'll be meeting at 6 o'clock into infinity,
So-
or at least next
And
July.
November 2nd is already noticed.
Okay.
So you have to start November 30.
November 30 at
Oh, no,
6.
30, we told people 6:30, Jeff, forget that.
But can't we just note it?
December 7th. Yeah, I guess we could.
Yeah, we could republish.
We have time to renotice?
We post that already or no? Okay. All right, so we'll start on
November 30th at 6.
November 30th at 6,
Thank you.
except that I told the school. that we were starting at 6:30. Yeah, true.
Mr. Fox, did you have something?
Just a question, people, they thought this was on a permit, we don't understand how you could say it wasn't on a permit.
It's not listed in the comprehensive permit.
It's in the, we have decisions from you folks, it's listed.
Yeah, there was a
Should he be over
discussion
there?
in the minutes.
Yeah.
but it was
You need to be
not
over there.
the permit itself.
I was just asking a question, I'm not,
Wow.
I was questioning the statement that it wasn't in the permit, so, okay.
We are
I
now
understand.
out of control.
It wasn't in the minute, it was in your minutes.
It apparently was discussed, so it showed up in the minutes, but it did not show up in the decision.
I looked at the minutes, that's all they showed me, and we were on the assumption it was, it doesn't matter, we'll have the time to come back again, it's not gonna change.
Bye, Jim.
The meeting's over, I thought.
No, we're still.
No, you're stretching it out
I
longer.
thought you were done. The name's taken, all taken down, I thought it was over.
Chat with your, chat with your abutters.
Pardon me, I thought you were finished.
Board discussion.
I'm ready for bed.
So we're
That's all I
meeting,
got.
meeting on Saturday, right?
Next 28.
2 Saturdays, God.
2 Saturdays.
Don't show up
Are you
this
bringing
Saturday.
decaffeinated coffee?
I'm bringing the coffee. No decaf, it's in the morning. You gotta have wake up.
Oh,
We don't want
God,
any
you gotta be
sleepers
pumped
here.
up. Eye test.
I got something I'd like to get on the, as busy as we are, I'd like to get on the next open meeting. We discussed the upcoming 375 Sandwich Road and the need for outside counsel. And I voted that we should play it by ear and have town council participate, watch from home, whatever. Just in the last few weeks, I mean, we have a great, well, at least I do have a great rapport with town council. They're very helpful, but they're also very busy. And I've struggled with a few of these last items, which I've needed help on, and they are nowhere near as complex as this Sandwich Road is going to be. And I think the worst thing that could happen to this board, because there's so many, as I've said, there's the potential that we could be the most hated board in 40 years if this thing comes out wrong or if we make a mistake. And I just think that we need outside counsel coming right out of the gate. To be honest with you, I think this is potentially over all our heads. And I would like town council to be here as well. He can be our filter, so he doesn't waste any of the time with the outside counsel. But I've changed my mind. I voted wrong before, I've admitted, and I voted wrong then, and I really think we need to discuss outside counsel to assist us on this.
All right, so there is one element to consider as part of that, which is that we did apply for the mass housing grant. The application was submitted today. You're not allowed to apply until the applicant applies for the comprehensive permit. Mass Housing has 2 attorneys within their group of experts that they will assign to the board to be present for the hearings.
Well, that's nice. On top of that, I think that would be good as well, but I honestly, I said this to you earlier, and mass housing, as good as they are, you know, they have their own agenda and we have ours.
Yeah, so these are two attorneys from
Yeah, but they're
a
not-
private firm.
Could we discuss this on the 28th?
Anyway, I mean, I don't have, this discussion, I believe, has to be had, whether it's at the next open meeting or it's on the 28th. But I think I made my feelings clear. I don't know what everybody
I
else.
agree with you, and it should be on for discussion maybe on the 28th.
Okay, well, we need to really think, and I wish everyone will think about it in the interim, because
Now, I want to
you
get
think
town
your
council
work's been
opinion.
hard. I mean, it's about to get as tough as you can imagine, and tougher. And the only one here that has real experience with this is you have some with smaller.
Did a
and-
400 one, yep.
And you,
And I had
you
counsel.
made your.
We
you
hired counsel right in the
counseled us
room.
Right from the start, and, right, what can I say?
I
You
said
were
we need
right
counsel
again,
right off the
Suzanne,
bat.
and we're very proud of you.
We need counsel, whether it be ours or,
I think it's, we need the best, because, I mean, the experience of this, we're just outclassed without it. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think hopefully, like you say, we can round up our discussion. I think even just the whole process of the meetings is going to be challenging, and how can we be more efficient? But making sure everybody has their time to speak. But there's going to be a lot of folks here, and I think we got to be really efficient.
And I don't mean that we need to displace or replace town council. I think we need assistance above and beyond from somebody that totally specializes in this.
40B specialist, yeah.
So what I can do is scan into you folks the information from Mass Housing that explains what the purpose of this expert that they assign to you does. And they ask you to select from, they have a pool of about, I think, 7 people.
Is Bobrowski on that pool? In that pool?
2 attorneys from, I believe, that firm are on the list. So I requested the attorneys, and then the third person's non-attorney, but is very experienced.
From Bobrowski's firm?
I
Because
believe the 2 attorneys that are available on the list are from that firm. They would be at every hearing, and they would be essentially assisting in running the process. So I guess what I'd like to do is share that information for you to look at, because the developers pay into an account with Mass Housing to provide these grants. So it's free legal assistance to the community.
there's money there. Well, whatever, we need to discuss it, but free,
My suggestion, only because this came up, we had a meeting with the town administrator as well, says I would encourage board members to have a candid conversation with our town council, to say, these are my concerns. She may be able to address them if you're not satisfied after a discussion with her. I just would encourage people in the meantime just to reach out.
Is that individually?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. There were certain representations that were made to us that she said she was up for the challenge, the town administrator was satisfied, and
She's coming to the meeting on the 28th.
Yeah.
She's been invited, right?
yes, I believe so.
she kind of was
I
wishy-washy
thought she
about it.
I defer to your statement.
The third person that's not an attorney is a planner, but does all 40B stuff.
And she has
Right.
been on the zoning board in her
Oh,
community
yeah.
as well.
I think we've had her before.
She's
Judy Barrett's
She
her
did
name.
training for us over at the library.
Yes.
very experienced.
But you don't have to have you just have someone experienced 40B.
Oh,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to be
I mean-
attorney, you know? No offense to you guys.
I mean, a few people I've talked to just keep coming up with the name Bobrowski, and
No, he
him.
represented
We
Falmouth Board of Appeals in the Liberty Green.
Right, Liberty, yeah.
And,
We lost badly.
But like you say, let's discuss it on
yeah,
Saturday.
whatever, I mean, we're not
The
gonna
whole
make any.
40B process that we got coming.
Any updates?
No.
Great meeting.
The Bruinger agenda items. All right, our next
Christmas
meeting will be
party.
October 26, 2023, at 6:30 PM here in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. Thank you to FCTV for being here with us so late.
Thanks, guys.